And beautiful people, we are live. Welcome to another episode of Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum. This is episode 138, and we're joined by two first-time guests, Theus Robinson, and we're joined by Marlon Clyburn. Marlon's based in Charlotte, North Carolina. They both have activist backgrounds, and they're very much into political advocacy and organizing. We're going to talk about that today. That's going to be the main topic of discussion. And Theus has an organization called Our United Core that we're going to kind of introduce with. And I'm sure that Marlon has a background that's similar when it comes to political awareness and organizing and advocacy. So we're going to introduce these two gentlemen here on episode 138 of Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum, since they're new to the audience. But I just want to say welcome to the show, and I can't wait to have this dynamic and interesting conversation.
Thanks for the invite, brother. It's good to be here.
Thank you for allowing us to be on your show.
No problem. And also, as you all can see on Marlon's screen, he has a YouTube channel called Radical Truth to Power. And I did not forget to plug that in. It's going to all be a part of the discussion. I'm going to link Theus's and Marlon's information at the end of the episode description, so everyone has access to that information. And we can talk about how you can contact these gentlemen at the end of the show if you have any questions or comments for them directly. I just want to start the show out by saying I appreciate all the support. I don't think I've announced it yet on an actual YouTube stream, so I'm going to do it now. We did get past the 1,000 subscriber threshold. We're actually into the 1,300s now. And I just want to say that that's a testament to the audience. A lot of y'all are just so patient because we've had some issues. My mom has had a lot of health issues. I've had to take her back and forth to the doctor, and I haven't been able to be on here as regularly as I wanted to, but things happen in life, and we understand that as independent YouTubers and media outlets. But we're going to continue and try to get out as much information as we can. Again, we don't work with the same types of budgets as some of the mainstream outlets or even some of the bigger independent accounts. And so people have to keep that in mind. And that's the reason why episodes may not come out every week. We do have a lot of episodes scheduled down the road. I want to say the Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum is an international forum. We have about 44% of our audience located outside of the United States. And that was always the point, to make this a local, regional, and an international based forum so people can get those perspectives. These issues that we're going to touch on today don't just affect us. They don't just affect us locally. They're also very much internationally generated in scope. And you all are going to see what we talk about later when I make that comment. I wanted to get started with either one of you as far as just introducing to the audience, since you all are new to Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum, and just give them a brief introduction, where you're from, and kind of how you got into advocacy awareness of any type.
But basically, I'm a military brat, right? So that's a big part of what informs who I am and how I view the world. When you grow up in the military, you know, it's like there's not really you don't really recognize ethnicity so much. You're just like, you're related to your branch, right? So I grew up as an Army kid, and that made it so that I was, in a manner of speaking, kind of blind to a lot of things that were happening in the civilian world, as they say. And then as I grew older and, went off to college and started to, settle in, and that was when I started really picking up on some of the undertones in the nation. And then I started a family while I was in college. So that made me grow up a lot faster. And now I'm starting to see the world, like how it affects my daughter, how it affects me, how it affects my wife, right? And that's just kind of how I started to come into waking up, as they say. In brief, a way to look at me is my politics, right? So I often say, Marlon's heard this ad nauseum. All right, my politics are not red, my politics are not blue, my politics are black. Right. And that's not black to the exclusion of all others. It is just that it's black and that I center my people and my community's best interests as we move through things. I want to do my part to get things to where we are competing with everybody's able to compete, but we're actually competing as competitors and not as enemies in opposition. Right. And the best way to do that is to strengthen my team, work on building a better platform for us to work from. And I do it in a very pragmatic way. Sometimes you'll agree with me, sometimes you won't, but there we go. The website you see in front of you, complexsimpleman.com. That is the reason why I put that one there instead of our United Core, brother, is because that's the one where you're going to get like my political thought processes and my social thought processes. You can see all my old videos over there. Our United Core, since you raised it, that is different. That is a social organization. It's a community development organization that I'm building. It's not political. So there you go. That's me.
Born and raised, very few of us still around. Born and raised in Charlotte, still here. I have no thought to leave now, because I'm, like I said, one of the few who actually seen how this city grew over the years. This inaction into the political world, the social world, is a lot sooner than mine. I didn't get into it, and forgive me, I'm just telling you the truth. It didn't start until the pandemic started. And the pandemic slowed everything down to the point where I can focus and see exactly how this country is. I also got to the point of seeing how nobody was really truly saying or doing anything about the great experiment. They were just going with the even flow of this, that, and the other, and let's move on to the next bad thing to happen so we can fight on that one. Now, Radical Truth to Power is my YouTube platform. Theus is going to get sick and tired because I have said this since the very beginning of it. Radical Truth to Power actually started because of Lindsey Graham. Like, period, point blank. The behind story was Obama had a year and a half in his term, a year and a half left of his term. There was a Supreme Court seat up, and Lindsey Graham on record, on television. So it wasn't hearsay or we had a meeting and he said, no, we have it on the video of him saying, no, I do not think that Obama, who doesn't have but a year and a half, should have the right to pick the Supreme Court justice. I think that should be left to the next president. So none was picked. They asked, okay, so if a Republican president was in office with the same thing, would you say the exact same thing? And Lindsey Graham said, yes, I would. Fast forward into shorten the story, Trump got into office. Trump had about, there's a month left or something like that, a month left in office, and he still picked the next Supreme Court justice that was up. We have this on video, and the minute that I said, okay, here we go, something's going to be said, and sure enough, nothing was ever said of it. We got a couple of clips, and we got a couple of this, that, and the other, but it's like, where's the outrage of this? This man just flat out lied. So I figured, you know what? I got a big mouth. I'll say something. And I did. And it kept growing, and it kept growing, and it kept growing. Theus came on the show. Who came on first, Tracy or Theus? I keep getting confused.
I still say it was Tracy that came on first.
Okay, Tracy came on first, and then Theus came on, and now we got Anna Hart, and there we go. My platform is the country. So, yes, my people will always be in the forefront of that. Always. But I'm more of flow left and right. How can this country work together? And it really depends on the subject. There may be times when I feel like this country can't work together. There may be times when I feel like, nah, our people need to do our own thing. Just really depends on what the subject is. And I try to keep that very balanced with my commentary. I try, but there are some subjects in America where, no, we're not going to pretend it didn't happen. No, we're not going to pretend that we just, we done did the marching and the hooping and the hollering and everything else. And okay, now let's go ahead. I got to stop because my favorite show just came back on the air, and I got to watch my favorite new episode. That's a lot of talk for us, probably saying absolutely nothing. But
nah, brother.
that's exactly how I am. I'm off the cuff, and I'm like this. There's some things you're going to disagree with me about. There's some things you're going to agree with me about. There's some things that you're going to probably say, why would he say that? Me and Theus argue a lot on the show. A lot. But it's funny that you wouldn't even know it's an argument, because me and Theus at the end, we want the same thing at the end. We just take different paths to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the argument. So our argument is just more, we're still talking to each other.
Yeah, I think a big thing people miss, man, and this is, and anytime you want to accomplish something, you want to move something, you got to understand that even if we're all headed to the same destination, that's cool, right? First, to start, like you were saying, we're talking about in the spirit of organization, you agree on the same destination, but you have to respect that each of us are starting from somewhere different, right? So if we just use our geographic locations, I'm in Georgia, Marlon's in North Carolina. We're all trying to get to California. We're not going to take the same path. Okay. And then you have to understand, I'm driving, a motorcycle. He's driving a bus, right? So we're going to have different ways of getting there. And one of us might be more aggressive. One of us may be more laid back, and we might switch along the way. Right. And that's super important, I think, when you're trying to build something, because if you go in there thinking we're going to have a hive mind, it's just not going to work, right? Because then you'll end up in a situation where you end up having a really strong personality, and you're looking for that strong personality. He shall lead us, and you get led astray, right? But at the same time, you have everybody with strong voices, and you spend so much time arguing amongst each other, you never get started. So, it's just understanding that those differences always exist, and being willing to devote the energy to navigate.
And to be honest with you, I really would not even want to have a hive mind. I do not like the idea of another thing that happened during the pandemic is a lot of the birth of a lot of echo chambers.
Oh yeah.
Of people who just, this is the way, this is what we do. Ooh, yeah, I agree. This is the way we're going to do it, and everything else. Where, yeah, y'all all together and y'all agreeing on where you want to go and how you want to get there, and nobody in there is telling you, no, that's wrong. That's not. No, don't turn around. Nope, don't go that. So the birth of the echo chamber during the pandemic, it was so strong that we are now 4 years removed from it. And you're so invested in it for so long that it's hard for you to even pull out of it now. For whatever the reason is, you still believe in it. You don't want to look like a fool. Yeah, I don't believe in what I used to believe in, but I don't have enough information on what the new thing is, because I've been in this echo chamber for so long. This is the only thing I know. So yeah, Theus, the mind, having a mind hive is not a good look either.
Yeah, but this is where we kind of push and pull on each other, because like I kind of dance between the two. Sometimes a hive mind is okay. Sometimes the group think is okay. Sometimes independent thought is okay. I think there's a place in a time for things. Where we oftentimes get tripped up is we don't recognize when it's not the right time or the right place for what we're doing. Right? We want to force the solution instead of navigating the path. Right? So anyway, you done been with me once before, brother. And Marlon's with me all the time. If it's silent, I'm gonna fill it with sound. So don't let me run away talking.
Oh yeah, because we still ain't got the subject.
You all look good.
This was the introduction,
right?
No, but since we're on the topic, and Marlon brought up something really interesting. And I kind of want a clarification on it as far as the pandemic. You say that things changed with you with the pandemic. is that strictly, are we talking about everything that dealt with the pandemic, which included the social advocacy in the streets? You also had the whole question of the mainstream media and the corporations and then the pharmaceutical companies. You have that question. This person is labeled as this because they decide not to get the shots versus the people who get the shots. And then you have a change of the arms when it comes to the presidency. You have a lot of things going on in that particular time period. Is it just the pandemic itself, or is it just everything within that era? Or is that what you're referring to?
No, I've said this before. The one thing that the pandemic has done, where people not gonna agree with it, but it's true. There is nothing that happened during the pandemic that didn't happen before the pandemic. So all the marching, all the our people getting killed by police, all the political issues that we had, that stuff was happening before the pandemic. Nothing different happened. The difference is the pandemic forced people to slow down. You didn't have those places to go. You didn't have your favorite TV shows to watch. You didn't have that new album coming out. You didn't have distractions on really important issues. So this time when a Black person got killed in the streets, well, I appreciate you marching, but are you marching because it's the right thing to do to get the issue out of there? Or I ain't got nothing better to do? And I find this really interesting, so let me do it. I'm sorry, Thea, but
I know, we differ on this, but yeah,
I know. But the pandemic slowed people's minds down to actually focus on the American issue. But like I said, tell me what happened during the pandemic that didn't happen before the pandemic. Same issues. But we didn't have a march every day for literally 3, 4, 5 months. We didn't have that. We didn't have everybody up in arms on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, hooping and hollering and all this other stuff. Why? Now I see how America is. Well, explain to me why you see it now, because this stuff is not new. None of this is new. Because you can't go to that store because your new Nikes just came out. Because that's closed down. Oh, you can't go to the movies waiting for that new movie to come out that you've been waiting for years and years because the movie theater is closed. You can forget about the TV show because they ain't coming up. They ain't showing up.
Theus, what exactly do you disagree with what Marlon is saying right now?
Well, with everything is about how we come into things. So I've been angry for a long time.
Man.
So
yes, you have.
For me, so for me, it was like I see different reasons for why people reacted the way they did. We're not differing on many of the outcomes, but it's like George Floyd being murdered. Yes, the COVID slowing things down really helped. But I'm looking at some of the factors behind that, really, that kind of drove it. Because the energy was mainly in the young people across all demographics. The demographics, right? So the young people, during that time, they were dealing with a really bad unemployment for young people specifically. So they had a lot more time to focus on their shared plight. See, before it was individuals suffering. And then when this happened, you can't afford school, you can't go to work so you can afford to go to school. You're at your mama's house, you burned out from doing that. I'm just talking about the young people at this point. Watching this man get murdered on TV did something. It just really did something. But it was building off of all the young men who had died beforehand, right? So Alton Sterling and Philando and all, they add into it. But as is normal with America, and this is bigger than the young people now, this is everybody, as is normal with the young people, America, period, we want to stay asleep. We don't want to look at it. Okay. That's one of the most tragic pieces of the American story, is that we don't like to look at things because it makes us uncomfortable. And when you are the big dog on the block, you don't have to be uncomfortable. So the race issue will bubble up, die down, bubble up, die down. I was screaming into the void. Hey, y'all, just because the murder isn't happening on TV right now doesn't mean the murders aren't still happening. Okay? Just because we're not hearing about the police officers taking advantage of the women that they take into custody doesn't mean that it's not happening right now. Right? So with COVID, it slowed it down. People could see things, and that was cool. They were able to get out of just looking at their own individual pieces. So that's where I was saying I kind of disagree with. I think it was more than just boredom. It was more, it would allow them to really see some things that were moving too fast beforehand or simply weren't being covered, right? It was like sweeps week, right? It was like Shark Week, right? It was like, hey, black people getting murdered on TV. And that's what we were doing for 3-4 months, right? And then they started talking about unemployment, and they started talking about nobody wants to work, and they started talking about, and see, once they started moving into these other things to fill the airwaves, more people started clicking because, okay, the racial thing wasn't my thing, but don't want to work. Man, I wish I had a job that let me work at home, right? Or the one where they're talking about the minimum wage, raising the minimum wage. That discussion only could happen because people were slowed down and they were dealing with the fact that you can't get your coffee and you can't get your whatever. So all those things came together. That's cool. Where I try to function is, but so what? Right? We are stuck in a constant state of outrage and mobilization. And people are obsessed with quick responses and quick solutions. One of the reasons I stopped doing much recording and everything is because I become disillusioned. Because when you ask me, well, how do we solve this? And I tell you, there is no solution. There's a process. People tune out, right? They want me to say, well, if you do this to the police, it'll fix it. If you do this to the politicians, it'll fix it. No, that's not reality, right? So I'm sitting here like, all right, well, how you bring these threads together? How do you actually build something that can last long enough that it's ready to mobilize when you need it, but it's always building and it's always planning and it's always adjusting, even when it seems like it's calm. And that's kind of how it was for me. So COVID was a bubble. It wasn't an experience. It was just a little.
But wouldn't that be, isn't that going to Marlon's point though? Because I think I may have even a stronger opinion about it than Marlon does. I definitely agree with what Marlon's saying. I don't believe that it was that organic. I don't believe that the protesting at its core was organic because I didn't think that it was sustainable to begin with because it was a reaction. And I think what you're saying is kind of going to the sentiment of reactivity as opposed to proactivity. We're very reactive to things once they're happening. Then we have a reaction to it instead of doing something that has a goal in mind. It's like we have a culture now where we're reacting to every news story, every soundbite, every event that happens. Somebody has an opinion about it. And in that particular instance, with the summer protest of 2020, which honestly, there was no large legislation that was passed.
Nope.
Nothing was changed, which even confirms more of what I think we're talking about. It was a moment. You said it was a moment just then. How is that any different than what Marlon is saying? He could have worded it maybe differently.
No. I
mean, were these people ever really going? What were they actually protesting about? I guess is the question.
To an extent, I'm in agreement with Marlon.
Okay.
Where I'm saying is I'm coming from a different scope or different level. Like he's looking at it more, I say, at like 1,000 feet, and I'm at like 50,000, right? So I'm like, what do we do with that? I don't think that we should take away from how valid that was. Okay. The crime or the failing was not in the protests, right? Protests are the voice of the aggrieved. Okay. the organization that needs to be, and we need to focus on rebuilding some of them, right? Whether it be the church or the NAACP or 100 Black Men of Atlanta or Justice League, or name your organization or build your organization. Those things are always around, right? So what we ideally would have had was the protest was raising the volume. It was getting the energy up, right? And then behind that, you would have people like we did have this part, the NAACP in the courts, pushing and putting lawsuits out there and defending lawsuits and doing all that, trying to move the ball. And they were doing those things, but they weren't doing it in coordination. It wasn't cohesive, right? So you had the people in the street making noise. Great. I need y'all to do that because I ain't going out there protesting because I'll probably do something stupid. But you got the people out there protesting. Great. That's how you execute your voice. Then you also need to have people in the courts doing this. Then you also need to have already developed a bench of politicians like the progressives who are already in there so that they can also echo your message, right? Then you need to have the ear of the president. Then there's so many things that need to be happening. And this isn't fanciful speaking, because if you look at our peer groups, you look at like, what is it? Anti-Defamation League. I think that's the one.
ADL. Yeah.
Yeah. They do this. Okay. They don't march in the streets because they don't have to. Right now, sometimes they'll do a march because that's how you gain local energy or whatever. But for the most part, they don't have to do that because they got a direct line to people who make decisions and they have leverage, right? So my thing is, we had that, but it was all the pieces were moving, but they weren't moving together, right? So that's why I'm not saying Marlon's wrong, and I'm definitely not saying wrong because he's right. I'm just saying that had we had the organization in place, the right level of cooperation, partnership agreements, things like that, then we could have been actually moving somewhere. And you'd have your drum majors and your tubas and your clarinets and your horns. Everybody be working together, moving this thing to make one sound. We don't have that. So I'm saying we will have more of these events. We will, because that's life. What we need are to have some organizations, it'll be plural, that are in the background ready for when some of these things happen, so that we can call on our partners, we can call on our peers and say, all right, Black Lives Matter. You guys do great with local organizing, mobilization efforts, and protests. You know how to get the permits, you know how to do these things. Cool. We're going to need you. NAACP, what can you guys do in the courts? All right, so what kind of legislation might you be pushing so we make sure when we're doing a protest, we're using the right language that reflects some of the things that you're going to be saying in the courts, right? Okay, hey, who's a politician? I'm just going to say Cory Booker because I can't think of nobody. I know he ain't the right one. But Cory, all right, so who can you work with in Congress? How many House members can you rally? How many senators can you at least get sympathetic ears to and put out a bill or try to get a bill moving? Even if it never makes it out of committee, I need you to get together and put that bill in motion so then we out here protesting can echo that language, so that the court system is echoing that language, so that our talking heads across the podcasting medium is talking that language, so that we're all saying similar things so that we can move somewhere. We had an opportunity. I truly believe we had an opportunity to have gotten that John Lewis thing passed. Was it strong enough? No, but we had a chance. And big America was scared. They're like, oh, we're going to have to pass something. Like they did after they murdered Martin Luther King. Well, we're going to have to pass something. They're about to tear some stuff up. We got to do something. But then we calmed down. We calmed down and we didn't have any demands. And we did that because we were disorganized. People like to look at the past. I say, yes, look at the past. And when you look at the past, we had what was called the Big Six. One of my heroes, Malcolm X, and another one of my heroes, Kwame Ture, They did not work with the Big Six. Okay. But if you listen to some of the things they used to talk about, they would let you know about the Big Six. Those were your more middle ground black leaders, right? That was your Dr. King and your, I forgot some of their names, but you know what I'm talking about. The heads of the NAACP, all the big organizations. But they all used to work together. They would come and have meetings together. They would talk to each other. They would game plan together. They did not agree with each other, but they agreed on what they were trying to do. Right? That's where I'm saying we got to get to doing some of that. Right? And there's probably people doing it. Okay.
Marlon, but what Theus is saying, is that even possible? It's concerning when you mention the organizations, because I know this word co-optation is used like almost too much. I hate that word in a way, but it's not even just that whole idea of the potential of co-optation. It's just simply the organizations you named seem to be linked to the larger political system, and I think that's a serious problem. I don't know if Marlon sees that as a problem or not, but I just think that the organization has to be independent from any of the politics, because the way politics are now, they weren't like they were when Kwame Ture and Malcolm X were crossing and talking to some of these more mainstream black activists. That's not the situation now. Our political system is not like it was back then.
I say it's worse then than it is now.
You think it's worse then?
Absolutely. Ain't nobody stringing us up. Ain't nobody bombing our churches. Ain't nobody firing you because you said that you were pro-black. Now, if you say some of the other things, they might come get you, right? But we live in a time. I look at it like this. It's like if you ever trained as an athlete and you put on the heavy bag, right? And you go running because you're building resistance, right? And then you do that so that your muscles are strengthening for a heavier load. So that when you take this off, your muscles are like, whoa, I can go. Back in the 60s and 50s and 60s, they had a heavy bag on. Mm-hmm. Okay. At any time, Malcolm X's house was bombed. Martin Luther King's house was shot. Like, these things were real. Ed Medgar Evers shot, right? So it's like, now we do have some of that here, but it's not the same. It's not the same tenacity. It's coming, folks, but it's not the same. So I'm saying it was worse then. It was worse then. It was almost okay to have an all-white jury when you got a black defendant. Now they're gonna make some noise you do that, right? So it's not good, it's just different. And I think that since we have less of the heavy bag on, we should be running harder. And where I think we kind of I can move with how you're talking, I can move that way. But the other part I'm saying is, instead of always starting over, take over what we have. If the church ain't doing what we need to do, those of you who believe in whatever the faith is that's in that church, then you go in that church and become more active in its leadership and start to change its mentality. And it will change with you, because it's full of weak people. If you are mentally set for something like the NAACP, I worked with them for a little while, but I'm a little bit too aggressive for some of the things they were working on. So I ended up tapping out and trying to start my own organization. But if you're in that mindset, go work with them, shift their mentality. Here in Atlanta, we got a young head of the NAACP, Gerald Griggs. The guy is dynamite, and he's done the work. He's been with the organization for years. Do I agree with all of his stuff? Nope. Right? But he's doing the work. So I'm saying, like, instead, and if we want to see how this actually works in reality, you look at the Tea Party. The Tea Party went after the Republican Party, tried to take it over. It wasn't successful. But they made major inroads and they shifted how the Republicans had to do some things. Then they morphed and they got the new figurehead and they became MAGA. And now they run that party. They own that party. They are that party. Anyone who is of the older class, even if you're there on their terms. Democratic side, progressives go in. They call themselves progressives and they go in. Right? Following in the heels of a Bernie. Bernie had to go in on a sleeper mission. He went in as an independent who was in there and just slowly doing what he do. right? Then the progressives came behind him. They started to shift how the Democrats had to move. It was because of the energy of an AOC and the other people that came, because I'm not a progressive. So they went in there and it changed some of the conversation. That is why you have a Joe Biden that was doing some stuff that we didn't expect him to do, right? Like, wait a minute, the tax credit, you doing that? You know, okay, Joe, do that, right? You know, we didn't expect that from him. He was supposed to be a corporate Democrat who's in there shilling for the government, for this corporate, which he does. But he did some progressive things because he put one of their sympathetic people, Kamala, as his VP. So we started hearing different things. So I'm saying, like, take over some of the things that are there. Build, like you were saying, these new things, build them. That's fine. It builds energy. It makes people hear things. That's the Malcolm X side of the equation, I would say, right? The Elijah Muhammad side. Listen, let them people work with you, because if you don't, I'm over here and I'll burn it down, right? We need all of that.
I know you got something to say, Marlon, about all this.
You was looking kind of shocked on, are things better now or different now than it was years ago? I agree with him. It is. It was a lot worse in the 50s and the 60s. But so I can hear people now. So why are you complaining then? We're better. We're better. We overcome. Two things. One, no. Two, because that's 40 years ago. It took 40 years to get to this. It took 40 years, and let's use George Floyd, like we was on that topic anyway. The marching was because we were so used to our soldiers being killed in the streets and getting brushed away. We were so used to it. George Floyd, and please do not take this out of context. I'm just making it perfectly clear that it was a terrible situation. It was also the perfect storm. Mm-hmm. You could not have somebody who videotaped it from the beginning to the end. You could not have it where you had multiple witnesses. Mm-hmm. And you could not have it where it was instantaneously, we not going to take this stuff. Mm-hmm. Got to make sure I'm on somebody else's show, so I got to watch my mouth.
No, you can here all no holds barred, whatever.
I know, but the first hour of my show, we don't allow.
We're trying to do better, man. We're trying
to do better.
Here is like the exact opposite. I try not to curse, but it comes out and it happens.
So it was such a perfect storm that we had to make sure that this stuck. And this is going to get bad because this is one of our sticking points. But as soon as the verdict went out, as soon as that cop was found guilty, what's one of the videos that they showed over and over again? They see us now. They see us now. No, they don't. They don't.
Because people thought the work was done.
What happened after George Floyd? Ahmaud Arbery. And the only reason Ahmaud Arbery happened was because the dude was so stupid that he went to a radio station with the video bragging about it. And Lord, thank you that the person that he showed the video with, wow, this is foul. No, I need to let this out and let everybody know. And thank goodness he did it, because he had a prosecutor that was district attorney that was already ready to brush this under the rug. No.
And what has happened to that prosecutor?
I think they
got fired. That's about as best we get. We don't know what's happening yet. Because what they do, and that's where I'm getting at with a lot of these things. These events happen exactly how Marlon laid it out. Perfect storm, right? That was mobilization that happened afterwards. Using something that Kwame had once said in the past, it's like Black people, and I'm paraphrasing, Black people are very easy to mobilize. Okay? We can put a sign, take a sign, put it in the yard, and say, people in this building called me the N-word. And within 24 hours, there would be a protest, and then we'll start to have marches, and we'll start to boycott and do all those things. Very easy to get us to show up and mobilize. But then it fades away because it's built on anger. It's built on emotion. Emotion, in my view, is a tool, and you should employ that tool when it's time to employ that tool, and you need to put it to work. But you need a steady hand controlling that tool, and that's where organization comes in. That's where you are sending people to go protest. You are not only, once they go protest, even if it's organic, fully green, what is it called? Grassroots? That term? Grassroots? Mm-hmm. And it's purely organic, and they all show up. And then the organization's like, this is where we need to be. We agree with these people. Let's go. Now, here's what an organization does. Organization makes sure that it can charter buses or it can deploy its own buses to get people to and from the protest. It can make sure that there are snacks and water and first aid, right? This is what organization does, right? So that the protests can last longer and that the people can be more comfortable, right? An even stronger organization can send out security so that if little squabbles break out, they can diffuse the energy, right? Then organization can say, great, this is something that actually has legs. We can work with this. Call our attorneys, get them on this. We want to see what we need to do and what we need to press next. All I'm saying is all of these events are very valid, and I'll never take away from them, especially I can't take away from something where I'm sitting on my butt while they're over there doing it, right? I can't take away from that. I'm saying that the organization needs to be there, that we can rely upon to take care of our vanguard. Our young people are our vanguard. That's our energy. Those are our soldiers, right? Those of us who are in our 40s and 50s, we are supposed to be more in a leadership role where we are giving them tactical information and we are making sure that their supply lines are set. They're going to take care of the field work, right? But right now we got everybody just running around doing what they do, and it's scattershot. It's like, as Malcolm said, if I take my hand like this and I hit you with it, it'll sting. Mm-hmm. But if I bring all these things together, now I can do damage, right? And that's why I started my organization, even though I've kind of shifted a little bit because my mentality has shifted a little bit. But there's other organizations out there. Whatever your level, I hate this term. I actually love the term, but I hate what's been used with it. Whatever your level of militancy is, there is an organization for you. And if there isn't one, make one.
And right? I got to say this about the protest. I just want to make it clear. The protest wasn't perfect either. We've had reports, and thank goodness there were people on the grounds who stopped it. We had reports of people who were protesting, marching. They had their goal of what they wanted to do, who constantly had to stop because we had people who were so revved up, either being honest, being a real actor or a fake actor, start tearing stuff up. And thank goodness there were people who was like, no. I don't want this protest to be like, that's all we do is going to go damage stuff. We've already done that. We know exactly how the media and everybody else is going to take this. This is just, they just want to do damage. No, we need to focus on what we need to focus on. But people, remember that you in America. Because the other funny thing that happened is the people, the Instagram people and the YouTube people who would drive up to a protest in their car, run out, take a picture in front of the protest, put the camera back up, jump in the car and go home. And then go on Instagram and go, I was marching with the protest.
But you'll never be able to control those things. And I'm like, those things are fine in a manner of speaking. But that's part of why I said an organization will be able to send out the security, right? An organization will have their field officers who are out there as well. If you like, I went to, this was years ago, but it was when that big school shooting had happened, and all of a sudden it was the one that Mr. Hogg was part of, and all of a sudden there was like around the nation huge marches about gun violence, and I went as a part of the NAACP, but I was out there and it's like you had all of those things. So yes, you're going to have the unruly people because they're really charged up, right? And that's cool. And destroying things, you ain't never going to hear me say don't destroy nothing. That ain't me. You can say what you want to say about me, whatever, but I just believe that I can't control the voice of the aggrieved. So if they didn't got to the point where they're out there and they're breaking windows and doing all that stuff, that's what they're doing, right? Now you're going to be held accountable to the actions that you take. And so they come get you for it, then they come get you for it. But you did it because people never look at all the stuff that came before. They never do. It's like being in school where the kid keeps kicking the back of your chair and the teacher does nothing. But as soon as you turn around and not fire from them, now you the one getting suspended, right? It's the same thing. I'm looking at it like right now here in America. You have a lot of tension in the political atmosphere, a lot. And people being ignored and I'll do even better one is more clear because I think it translates across the board. Sorry if I get too political on this part, brother, but Gaza. Okay. I used to use this analogy for Iraq and Afghanistan. Now I can use it for Gaza. It's the same thing. You are a peaceful person. But you're under the oppression of a group that does not see you as an equal. Okay. In the case of Gaza, they're under literal apartheid. Mm-hmm. These people Israel controls Gaza's water.
Everything.
Okay? They decide how much water comes down the dad blasted pipe and have made it illegal for them to capture rainwater. So that's the kind of apartheid, oppressive state. They're in an open air prison. Mm-hmm. And periodically, to make sure they keep the rowdies under control, Israel will come in and they would round up what they would say were terrorist leaders, but really they were just going to get men of fighting age. And they would take them and arrest them, even though they're in a land that's not theirs, right? Mm-hmm. Then they had the Al-Aqsa Mosque and all these different things. And I'm not saying the Palestinians are blameless because it's a fight, right? Right? But then each time Israel would respond, I remember watching even as a kid, they would be hit with a rock and Israel will come in with a tank. Mm-hmm. Okay. And each time you do that, you are creating your next wave of opposition. And so that's what I'm getting at, brother, was like what we were saying about how they're breaking stuff and burning stuff down. That's because no one paid attention to the times that they went to City Hall and said, hey, my baby shouldn't be breathing this bad air. Y'all need to come pick up the trash and stuff. And hey, I want a better school for my children. And hey, I want you to fix this pothole. And nobody listening to that. Hey, you took my son and locked him up. It was his first offense and you gave him 20 years. And you would have only given somebody else a year or maybe probation. Nobody's listening to that. Hey, how come they got into a fight and you expelled my son, but this kid over here, he gets in fights every month and he doesn't even get suspended? Nobody's listening to that. So it's all building up. And then as soon as something like this happens, you murdered this man on TV, mm-hmm. Right? Oh, look at these people looting mm-hmm. and burning up their own neighborhood. Part of that, we don't control our messaging. And I'm sorry, it was a weird pivot, but we're here now. We don't control our messaging. So that's another side of the organization side. That's where we pour into, and however you might feel about this person, you pour into people like a Roland Martin, right? You pour into people like Brother Kiko here. You pour into people like Marlon. You make their platforms bigger and more robust so that they can become your mouthpiece. Now that means y'all gotta hold us accountable too, right? When we start getting off base, you shut us down, ignore us, do whatever you do. But we need that, because without it, here's what you get. You get the protest, and all of your coverage and what's happening comes from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and a bunch of other people who don't care about you. Don't care about the issue. Don't care about none of that. They care about what sponsor dollars can I get pushed into this hour. And that's what we get. So we need to develop, everything for me is develop the other pieces that we need and build lines of communication so that we can stay somewhat organized. That's my big thing.
I want to go to something though that we said before, because just for clarity purposes for the audience, I don't think we disagree with what I was saying earlier. I was only making the point about the historical significance. I argue that because I've done an episode, like we've done several episodes about the Congressional Black Caucus on Tracy's show, and on this show, I've done a few just dedicated to that topic. I was making that point. I wasn't talking about Black people's experiences outside of politics in a Jim Crow era. I was talking more so, I don't believe that what you're saying could work now with organizations working with the Democratic Party, for instance. I'm saying that back then that was more of a possibility because those people were not tied to the big money. That's all I was saying. I wasn't commenting on the broader Black experience. I was talking strictly the political process within the chambers of Congress. I'm not talking about the Black people struggling with Jim Crow segregation. Obviously, that was.
Well, I just don't think you can look backwards at that time and not look at that, because that was the impetus for everything. But I'm interested in hearing from you. So you're more, and I'm putting words in your mouth, so tell me where I'm wrong. You're more on the, okay, this system is broken and it's twisted. Mm-hmm. So we need to find a way to function outside of it to affect it or affect change in whatever manner we need it to be. I'm curious, what are some of your ideas and how that would look? Because we can bat down ideas. I mean, hypothetical, you know.
So it's going to have to come from the outside of the political system. And I'm saying that back then, and I keep referring to that period, is because I don't know if we've been able to duplicate or even have anything that's similar to that particular time period now. And I think that explains a lot of the complacency that you mentioned in a couple of instances already. Why things just seem to die down within a few weeks, a few months' time. Things die down because people were so complacent. We're talking about a time period where people couldn't afford to be complacent. The Montgomery boycott lasted a year for anything to even happen. So we're talking about something that's raw, something that's organic, is very visceral. Unfortunately, is extremely visceral because there's so much oppression involved. And I think that the Gaza reference was really appropriate when you said that. And I'll bring Tracy in a second because I see her in the back. I think that that's a very relevant reference. But I just don't think that now in these particular times, and I'm going to get to your question, we have to find, I don't know if we're going to find a way to humble ourselves enough to get to a point where people do have the impetus to revolt. Because now technology is so accessible, things are almost too accessible. And with the accessibility aspect and the technological aspect of the 21st century, we're talking about generational divides where people have their own thing going on. Like there's no mobility. There's not even mobility. I would argue that there's not even mobility now that's sustainable, just back and forth.
Well, if I may, sir.
Because there's so many ways to escape now. I don't think back then there were those vehicles to escape the same way. And so people were, they had a plan because their circumstances made it for where they had to have a plan. I think now people are just so fragmented that when something does happen, the complacency is already built into the equation, and the ruling class knows this, and that's the reason why we don't seem to have any traction.
Yeah, let me say something on that real quick. I agree. I actually do agree. If you're looking at the 50s and 60s, there was no 24-hour news station. There was no, I mean, 6 o'clock, you got your news, 11 o'clock, you got your news, and we're done. See y'all tomorrow. We don't have instant information coming through. You know what? I argue with a lot of people when they say this world, this country. Hey Tracy, this country is so violent, and look at all the violence and going on and blah blah blah. Well, one, the violence have been going down year after year after year for the last 20 years, 30 years, something like that. But number two, when you found out that JoJo had a fight with Lulu at the school, you didn't find that out until the next day or the next week. Now, JoJo and Lulu's fight is live on YouTube as it's happening. You're just getting information quicker. And that, it does at times become a distraction.
It does, but check this out, bro. It's almost like, and this is the way I'm taking it because I could be wrong. It's almost like we're complaining about the tools. Okay, we get information faster. We had the internet; they didn't have the internet. But you know what? That's been the story of humanity forever. They didn't have written records. Then they got written records. Then they didn't have newspapers. Then they got newspapers. Then they didn't have newspapers. They had TV. That's how humanity moves. It's always going to get quicker. Always, right? The problem isn't the tools. The problem is how we use the tools, right? Yeah. And one of my frustrations when I talk to people about I call it the past. It's not really the past. My parents were alive, right? Mm-hmm. But we look back at the 60s, the 50s and the 60s, mainly because that was our golden era, right? That was where, we had a lot of people come together and we stood up and we fought and, and if you were on Malcolm's side or Martin's side or whatever, you had a side and everybody, right? What I always want people to look at and always remember is what did that rise out of? Okay? So that was unbroken oppression and obstruction from 1619 to 1868. Then, in 1890 something, Jim Crow said, here we go. And we went right back into oppression. We had 10, 15 years of, and then we went right back into it. So this was tension that was building from the beginning of the 1900s to the 1950s, and then it burst open. That's 50 years of struggle. So, yes, we are much more comfortable now. Some of us, the ones of us who you see talking, are much more comfortable now. We are not representative of the majority of our community. All right? Many people in our community would dream of having just a little bit that I have. I'm not representative of the typical African American's experience in America. So where I worry is when people say things about how much more united we were in the 50s and the 60s, they're not factoring in the fact that we had to be. We were all in the same prison trying to break out. And it was 50, 60 years of that energy. We are now near the middle or earlier part of a new 50, 60 year, where that frustration has to grow more. It has to get there because some of us have allowed ourselves to believe we're more comfortable than we are. And when I see people present political positions, social positions that will hasten us into a more desperate era so that we can become more together, I find that foolish. Mm-hmm. You don't invite hard times so that you can overcome hard times, right? you take advantage of the fact that you have easier times. You don't have easy times. You have easier times, and you challenge yourself. Are you using the tools available to you to do something with that? And I say we're not.
Okay, so I want to get Tracy into this and kind of keep it afloat, because we've been talking about a lot of stuff before you came in, and it's good to see you, Miss Tracy Carson. The audience knows who you are, but for the people who don't know who Tracy is, she has a YouTube channel, Tracy Carson, Tracy Media LLC, and she has a lot of important guests on this show. And it's a YouTube channel, political, and she's been on the show 3 previous times. And she's on here again with us for a 4th time. It's good to see you today. And I just wanted to kind of get your opinion on this. We've talked a little bit about the George Floyd protests before. We've talked about mobilizing. Is protesting effective? But I'm trying to get, I guess, at what Theus is saying is more so, is not me really. I haven't offered really an answer to what he posed earlier about what do we do about the process outside of the electoral politics system. How do we organize is basically, that's kind of the topic of discussion right now. But I'm questioning to what degree with the tools that we have, do we don't have control of those tools. I don't believe that we have control of those tools. The media companies have control of these tools. Like YouTube, for instance, is owned by Google. So to what extent do we own the tools, and to what extent do we have the control of the platforms that we have? Because if this thing gets bigger than what it is, Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum, Radical Truth to Power, Tracy Station, your station, if these stations get to a certain critical mass, I don't believe that. I think that they're going to be treated very differently than some of the more open mainstream platforms that are corporate. They're not going to be treated the same way. We're going to be under condemnation. We've already been under condemnation because there have been channels that I followed that have been closed last week because they got too influential. So to a certain degree, we don't have the control. And I'm kind of getting this question thrown at Tracy, but also questioning how much have we overcome since the 50s and the 60s? Like, where are we at now as a people, 2024? And I'll let Tracy kind of take from there, like her opinion.
Wow. Okay. Give me the hard question. That's okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
What is this? My 18,454 time being on your form? And you give me this? Okay. There's a lot of thoughts I have on this. And hello, everybody. I don't think we've overcome. We definitely haven't overcome. We've made progress. We inch closer, but we haven't overcome. And then as a person of faith, I think, are we supposed to overcome? My answer would be no. Because we always are presented with a challenge of things aren't supposed to always be good, right? They aren't supposed to be sunshine and rays. I remember something I read in the Bible where Jesus said, in this life, you will have trouble. You're going to have trouble. That's called life. But then, of course, he said, be a good cheer. I've overcome the world. Not going to go down that path, but you're going to have trouble. There's always going to be oppression. There's always going to be challenges. Our response to that is where I have the question, because we're so comfortable in thinking we've overcome. And we haven't. Every time I hear about a Black person getting shot, I am reminded we have not overcome. We have not overcome when I see politicians taking money from AIPAC and taking money from this dark money pack and this. We haven't overcome. And so that leads me to think 2 questions. One, I know that we're not ever going to overcome. But in a sense, I also think, do we really want to overcome? Is it that we're comfortable where we're at? And that's why we're not active in the way that we are. I mean, the four of us have channels. Well, not so much Theus because he records every time, every time Trump becomes president. But um I don't know. I mean, the things that I'm in, I know I'm not the typical Black person, right? I know that most people are not going to be in the streets protesting. I know that most people, and y'all forgive me, I got this new pump on me that's making noises.
No,
I thought you just had you one of them classic beepers. You know what I'm saying?
No,
No,
I got this. This is my insulin pump. So now this gives me insulin on a consistent basis instead of me going and injecting myself. So it's let me know I'm a little low, so I might have to streak up and go. But we haven't overcome. I don't. Ultimately, as a person of faith, I don't believe we're ever going to overcome. I just don't believe that. I think we can make progress. I definitely make progress because you can't just sit here and say, "Well, we're not going to overcome, so let me just wrap this up and not do anything." That's not something that I believe. But I also believe that again, life it's going to be hard. It's going to be challenges. It's going to be oppression. It's going to be something. But I can't not make the effort. I can't not see people having no health care and me just be okay with it. I can't not see people not having access to not only health care but living wages and no access to food and me just not say anything. So yes, do I think that there are issues that come up? Yes. But I don't know if I'm saying it's there to make me act. Maybe that's what I'm saying. But I know that with all the issues we have, I just can't sit back and not say anything about them and not try to make some type of difference. I hope that made sense.
No, I actually want to segue, and then I'm going to get Marlon Theus's response because you just brought something up, and that's what I'm thinking about. Just the mindset now of just like a person who votes, for instance. We're going to talk about people who strictly vote. Why is it that these people, and they could be very critical of their government, in this particular time that we live in, you have health issues. I got people in my family that have some serious health issues, and I'm sure that you all know people that have health issues too. These same people are okay with not holding their politicians to a high standard, but these politicians are telling you that we're not going to give you the quality health that we have in Congress. But people that are voting are they just blind that what you're fighting for is not what they're willing to give you, even though they're enjoying the benefits of that health care? And no one even questions it?
And they keep voting for them. This is what I
Like, I don't understand that mentality. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, why are people like that now?
You voting against, you literally, when you vote within the duopoly, you're literally voting against your own interests. If you say you care about reparations, health care, climate change, and you vote for somebody that's not for it, do you really care about it? I'm not like, for me, I'm only talking about me. Mm-hmm. If you are not for Medicare for all, I don't care if you're the dog walker, the mayor, the governor, the senator. If you're against Medicare for all, I will not vote for you. Period. It's a period. I don't want to hear anything else. Because you're sitting here getting all this health care that my money paid for, but you're saying that I don't deserve it because big insurance is paying you money to do that. Really? Really? No, I'm not going to do it. But people do it all the time. They're like, well, it's not important. Yes, it is. Your insurance premium, it's going to go up. If you get your employee-based insurance, your premium is going to go up. Period. It's going to go up. You can't do a lickety thing about it. You going to buy your healthcare with healthcare.gov? I guess it's cheaper. It's not really for me. It's like $475 if I just went out and bought my own. Well, one, let's not say, I'll say it this way. Most people are not going to be sitting here comparing healthcare plans. They're just not. They're not going to do it. They're going to just buy whatever's the cheapest. So let's just assume you buy what the cheapest is. Does that give you the care that you need? So for me, it's Medicare for all or it's nothing. Like, I'm not gonna, that's me. Some people feel that way about reparations, which I feel that way about reparations. If you aren't for reparations, I'm not voting for you. I don't care.
But that's what I'm saying. I was just giving that as an example, but you could add any pile of issues onto that student debt or anything. I was just using that as an example. That why do people have the mentality when they're not even correlating with the principles, the initial principles? We're not even talking about all the other issues down, like the 20 other issues they don't give you. I'm just talking about one simple issue like healthcare. Like, why do people continue to do this over and over? And
or Gaza. I'm against genocide.
That's what I mean.
It's like, what? Huh?
That's what I mean. Any issue, like all this stuff is tied together. But I'm just saying, we're just sticking to one issue. I'm not even talking about Gaza and everything else. I'm just talking about one thing.
People literally, I said it before, and I say it again, and I'm about to plug my own channel. This is why I'm having the Defeat the Duopoly Award Show December the 14th. Yes, I'm promoting my own podcast on another person's podcast. That's just how I am. Because when you vote for this system, most of the platforms that most people support, third-party candidates have them. That's just, they support healthcare. Like overwhelmingly 70 to 85% of people support free healthcare for everybody. Kamala Harris does not support free healthcare for everybody. Ted Cruz does not support healthcare for everybody. 67% of Republicans support free healthcare for everybody. You know good and well Trump doesn't support healthcare for everybody. He has a concept of a plan. I don't even know what that means. If that's your issue, this is what I ask people. Pick your issue and ask yourself, am I voting for somebody that supports that issue? If your answer is no, you don't need to be voting for them. Now, I'm not one to tell you who to vote for, but I think everybody knows clearly who it is I support. I can't see myself like purposely saying, you know what? I'm going to vote for that Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. For what reason?
I know the audience. I'm sure that the audience know where most of us stand politically, but I want to get Theus and Marlon first, and then Theus as far as your reaction to anything that Tracy said or anything that I said.
Welcome to America.
Unfortunately.
You can have a certain topic, a certain stance on what you want, and one or two things is going to happen when it comes to time to vote. Either the candidate ain't going to do jack squat about what your issue is, but can fill in the gaps on a lot of the other things you have an issue with, or don't vote. But you can't have the status quo of, and I'm not jumping on Tracy, I'm just saying it to say it.
Hey, it's people jump on me all the time.
And Tracy used to be jumping on her in a way, so she's used to it. But,
I'm used to it. Go ahead.
But the deal is, there will never, ever, and we're on 47 now, 47 president, we will never, ever get your perfect candidate for whatever office you want. It's not going to happen. There was who?
I said, I said I had to dip out for a second because my blood sugar is getting low. But there's no such thing as a perfect candidate. Never, ever. Even the candidate I'm supporting ain't perfect. First of all, he ain't Jesus. period, point blank. And even if he was running, people
Jesus
like, well,
ain't doing it either.
Yeah, he ain't good enough. He not radical enough. And so there's no perfect candidate. We don't want
He's
perfect.
very, very preachy.
Yeah, he preach. He feed too many people. He'll be doing right. There's no perfect candidate. But like that's why I said pick one issue. One. Healthcare, Gaza, whatever you pick, and just ask yourself. Just start with one issue.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna go take my get my blood sugar straight. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Again, you going to have to bite the bullet on something. You're just not. I get the one thing that you want. I'm for reparation, but me, I know what it will take to get it, and we ain't there yet. We ain't close.
Not even close.
We're
Not even close.
We're not even on the pinnacle.
Nowhere even close.
Getting that. There's gonna have to be some political deep cleaning.
There has to be some deep turmoil. I agree.
Yeah. So, but that's my thing. That's mine. I can preach that to the top of the mountaintop. I have data. I have history. I have all that stuff. What I don't have is a pen and a paper and a way to make it a bill. But I know as time goes on, we will have that person. We just the deal with what we was talking about earlier about the 50s, the 60s, and today is it better than it was? Yeah. What we really got to realize, everybody, is that it was a trickle effect. Reagan was only right on that trickle effect one time, and it was history for the Black community. That was a trickle effect. Economics, you lied your butt off, but still, when it comes to the Black history, that is a sheer definition of trickle effect. We got what we wanted in drips. It's we don't want to remember how bad it was without realizing that was what was going on before we got to where we are now. Those were warriors who was fighting, and just look at it this way: I ain't gonna say every parent, every good parent out there, okay? Every good parent out there wants your child to be better than you were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
You want them to have goals and achieve them goals and not have to go through any of the stuff that you had to go through and having to go through now. You want them. That's the 50s and 60s. We're fighting our butt off so you ain't got to deal with this when you get older. And your grandchildren ain't got to deal with this when they get older. And your great-grandchildren ain't got to deal with this when they get older. Going back to what Theus is saying, we're at a part of history in this election where we all know what Make America Great Again meant. It was, hey, let's go back to the 50s and 60s. Now we have to deal with Project 2025, which is guaranteed to take us back to the 50s and 60s and stick us there to the point where we don't have a way to get back out of it. Even after we figure out it's the worst thing that ever happened. No, they're not trying to make us go back to the 50s and 60s. They're trying to make sure that we stay in the 50s and 60s for as long as they possibly can.
Okay. I'm gonna let Theus talk, and then I got to respond to what you just said. Like,
man, y'all through so much stuff, man. It's hard. It's hard, man. I'm gonna miss so many things I would really want to just counterpunch and go at. But I'm gonna run through some slogans real quick. Wants are wishes. You can want whatever you want. It's a wish. 2, reality is where you are, not where you want to be. One constant we can't control is time. And no matter what your plan is, your opposition has one too. See, one of my frustrations in a lot of this is lazy thinking, lazy wish fulfillment. We live in the time that we live in, right? Life don't get out the way because you want it to be different. So, one of the things that's brought up, why do people vote for Democrats and Republicans? Okay. There's a lot of different reasons, a whole lot of different reasons. Well, actually, one thing I'm back before all that. We throw around this word "we" a whole lot. Who is we? Because we changes based on what you're talking about. Talking about the black community, that's one we, right? Why do black people vote the way they do? That's one we. Why do working class Americans vote the way that we do? It's a different question. All right. Tracy was saying she lists some of the things that are important to her. I call it universal health care. She calls it Medicare for all. Essentially the same thing. Some differences. But that's up here with her. And then I don't know if you put them in any particular order because they're all heavy things. But then it's also the Gaza, which is really Gaza's more of a stand-in for how you treat people, right? Standing up for the aggrieved and the vulnerable. Okay. You can be a single issue voter. And I call that lazy voting. Mm-hmm. Because everything comes in a package. Everything. Even if you were to get a different, party in power, it comes with a package. And you're not going to agree with every piece of that package. And you're not going to get everything that you do agree with on that package. So when people go to vote, first I'll say the reason why I go to vote, and then I'll kind of extrapolate out. I go to vote based on various issues and positioning that I find important. It's not going to be specific policies in all cases, right? It's more about relative positioning and basically it's jockeying for position. Let's be real. It's a very pragmatic kind of view. If you've heard any of my talk before, you've heard me mention the bus. I use the analogy of you got the Republicans are driving the bus, and you got the Democrats driving the bus. Republicans are driving the bus, and the bus driver is heading towards a wall. He's doing 80 miles an hour with his eyes closed. He don't care. High speed, going to the wall. Everybody die. Democrat also high speed, headed to the wall, but he's doing it at 60. Okay? What's the difference there? They're both tragic ends to this story. The difference is the person going at 80 miles an hour with their eyes closed, they don't care who they hit, who they hurt, what they kill on the way. They'll run over cars, they'll run over children, they'll run over dogs and cats. They don't care. And the impact will be greater to you and those you love when it happens. Democratic Party, also not your friends, also tragic end. But because they're doing it at 60, one, you have a chance to survive when it does hit the wall. Two, you can start to prepare. Okay, can we get the emergency exit open? He's swerving, trying to avoid hitting certain demographics and groups, right? Trying not to cause absolute mayhem up into the wall. So you still are dealing with two bad situations, but what really matters to you as a person, to me, it matters that the slower speed means I have some time to try to organize with my people, try to work with the people that I can work with so that we can decide, okay, how do we cushion for impact? How do we brace? Do we hunker down behind the seat together so we pack in the space so when the impact happens, we kind of share the force so more of us survive? Do we get that door open in the back and we tuck and roll and hopefully all of us don't die going out the back of the bus? These are things that matter to me. So that's why, I'm not a Democrat. I vote Democratic from a positional standpoint.
I know, but I have to get a clarification from that. I know you're using an analogy, but you have to explain to the audience. You keep saying 60 miles versus 80 miles. why is the Democratic side given the benefit of the doubt? What makes them a lesser evil? I guess like that would be my question.
Very easy. That's very easy. Only one party is targeting vulnerable populations specifically in the most inhumane and what's the term when you they're not even people anymore, right? That's one party. Dehumanizing. There's only one party doing that. There's only one party that's saying we are going to forcibly round up immigrants in a bloody roundup. Their words, not mine. And deport them. Pause. Think what that looks like.
But you're talking rhetoric. You're talking rhetoric.
No, I'm not talking rhetoric. I am not talking rhetoric. I'm talking policy because we've already had that party in office and we watched them separate children and lose them, right? Mm-hmm. And not even worry about it. They were saying that's part of the deterrent. Okay? So it's not just rhetoric. It is real.
I know, but it's hypocritical in the sense that you're right, the Republican Party did do this, but George W. Bush created the Border Patrol, he created ICE, he created but he's supporting the other side. So like how does that look? Like he's supporting and his surrogates, they're supporting Kamala Harris.
Because that is more of a political stance.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying.
You have to remember one thing that the Republican Party also did too. They attacked the Capitol because they lost. There's no president on the face of the planet who would ever thought.
Here we go with Jan 6.
That's what's funny to me. That's what's funny to me. And this is where we're going to become a little bit more oppositional because I get the sentiment that oftentimes you're conveying, right? We're dealing with two bad actors.
Yep.
Cool. What is your alternative? What do you do when you say, you know what? They're both bad. They're both two wings of the same bird. That's one of the most inane statements. Anyway, they're two wings of the same bird. So okay,
that
cool.
doesn't make sense.
No,
they're two sides of the same coin.
Okay, and what does that mean? What does that mean? That means that's the currency of the land. So when you tell me without building an infrastructure, without building an organization, without having your own bus, you don't even have a bus to put me in.
Can I jump in here? Okay.
Wait a minute. You don't have a bus. Okay. I'm just saying you might have the better alternative in the long run. Put it together. Put it together. See, you can tell someone, you can give someone all the facts and all the knowledge and all the information, right? To let them know what their real circumstances are and all of these things. But if those bad circumstances are what feeds their family and you can't offer them no food, what have you done for them? Now, go ahead, Tracy.
Okay, I'm gonna have to just be Debbie the Downer, disagree with just about everything you just said. Here comes my contention. I'm gonna use, even though I'm not in this party anymore, I'm gonna use the Green Party and Jill Stein's campaign as my example.
You were in that party just a couple months ago.
I was in that party a couple months ago. Yes, I was.
Go ahead, Trace.
I don't know what the point of that statement was, but I'm going to continue with what I'm saying. Let me make this real quick. When AOC came out and made her criticism, the same criticism you just made, she doesn't have a bus. You know what getting that bus takes? It takes money.
Yes.
It takes money to compare a two-party system that takes dark money, PAC money, raises billions, not millions, billions of dollars.
Uses the courts to keep you off the ballot. Go ahead.
To compare that to a grassroots party, like the Green Party is. The Green Party is definitely grassroots.
They ain't grassroots.
They grassroots.
They've been around too long to call them grassroots. But go ahead. Cornel West, I say, is grassroots. He's new. He's an upstart, and he's pulling from whatever he's pulling from. But that's grassroots.
I'm going to say the Green Party is grassroots.
Okay. Because when I asked them about the Black agenda, all they could tell me is about gay folks.
PSL,
which is important to me, but it's not the only group.
And that's why I'm not with the Green Party. You just said it.
Just saying.
But you could put libertarian they're not, because they're on all 50 state ballots. But to compare that, because in my opinion, Green Party is grassroots.
Okay.
They do that. Oh, let's put it like this. They don't have the money that the DNC has.
Nope.
Kamala, because y'all get real funny about her name is.
No, her name is Kamala. You said it first.
No, because I'm making a comment. Some of y'all get real funny about how her name is pronounced, so I got to make sure I get it right.
Because if I called you Tracy, you wouldn't like it. You get mad when people misspell your name. So how dare you be concerned about your name and not someone else's?
Again, to compare those two, to take the $500 million that Kamala has raised and still keeps asking for
and you
money.
said it again. You said it wrong on purpose.
No, I did. I said, okay.
But I understand. Miss Harris, what else?
Let's not get caught up on Kamala Harris.
Keep moving. What's your point?
She's not even worth the time, honestly.
To compare that to the $500 million that the DNC is asking for, I'll say DNC so I don't agitate anybody because that's not my intention. To take that and expect the Green Party to be at that level is unfair.
I agree.
Unfair to say that. And for all the AOCs and saying you haven't built a party, I would say this. People like her that have power and don't use it is where my problem lies.
There's an argument to that.
So you're going to come out here and criticize the Green Party for not building. I said this. Yes, the Green Party shows up every 4 years because that's all the Green Party can afford to do. The Green Party holds offices in city councils, state offices. And just because we don't see it doesn't mean they're not building.
Not saying that.
No, I'm saying this is what the DNC is trying to.
No, I copy that, but I'm just saying Green Party's been around for 40 years. They're a real party.
They are a real party. Well, I'm saying to compare the two, they don't have the resources that the Democratic Party has. Period. They don't have the resources. It takes money to get the bus. It takes money to be on TV. It takes money to travel. I recently, I'm going to brag on this. I recently interviewed Dr. Cornel West, and he revealed his campaign has $12,000. You can't run nothing.
I concur.
You can't run anything. So to expect the same expectations is what just frustrates
me. You see, that's the funny part. The ones expecting the same expectations is actually you, not me. I don't expect the same expectations. I do go into it looking at the reality of the situation. I do look at the fact that the Republican Party and whatever is formed, because really the party names are almost secondary.
They don't mean
they're liberals. They're liberals and there's conservatives. That's what they are. They're liberals and they're conservatives. Because at one point they flipped the names and all that good stuff, right? They do these different things. And even when you had wigs, they were conservatives, right? It's you.
The thing is, I gotta cut in real quick.
Yeah, bro.
Everybody, I apologize, but I have to go. I got like a room full of kids that's about to tear my house up.
Go ahead, Grandpa.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Kiko, for bringing us onto this forum. I truly appreciate it. Thank you. I hope to be on again.
You will definitely be back on. Absolutely. We have so much more to discuss, Marlon. I appreciate your presence, and we will definitely reconnect at another time, and you can come back on the show anytime you want.
I appreciate it. This, see you tonight.
You got it, bro. But the thing is, like, we can get into the weeds, and we can argue about little bitty things all day long. I'm talking about the reality of the overall situation. You have come into someone else's playground and they're playing freeze tag and you now want to play TV tag, right? It's you can't expect them to just say, "Hey, newcomer, come on in." That's not how it works. You come in understanding, one, it's a fight. Politics does two things. Politics is how you allocate resources. And politics is war without bloodshed. That's what that is.
I agree with that.
The reason why you want to get into politics is because you want to be part of the discussion on how we allocate resources. But in order to be part of that discussion, you have to fight the war. No one's going to say, hey, newcomer, thank you for joining the war. We're going to go ahead and give you an equal amount of armaments, and you go ahead and get your team together and let us know what else you need. And then when you're ready, we'll all fight. No. What we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, there's a newcomer. What we need to do is let's work together to make sure that they don't come in and mess up even what we're already working on, because my strategy is to fight you and your strategy is to fight me. And we would have to create a whole new strategy to fight them. So let's make sure we keep them from being too big. That's how corporate works. That's how politics work. That's how we work in interpersonal relationships. We always do this. This is how it works. So the third party concept, I'm not against it. See, when we have these discussions, it ends up sounding like I'm against it. It's not that. Go back to what this whole conversation started on, was about organization. If you don't build the organization, you don't have the infrastructure, you're not ready. Okay? So if you will find yourself trying to come into this fight in the last 2 years, coming into a presidential election, and you can't stand in that gap and have the resources you want and have the infrastructure you want, you weren't ready. You weren't ready for this fight. Get more people. Get more people on your side. But to come in and you got $12,000 and they got $500 million, you can't say that's unfair. You can't say it's unfair.
I absolutely can say that's unfair.
It's not your place. What are you going to do? What are they supposed to do for you?
No,
what are they supposed to do for
where are they getting? Cornel West.
We know where they're getting money from. Citizens United, dark money. I'm not okay with it. See, that's a simple A to B logic stream.
Okay.
And see, that's not how I function. You've known me for years. I don't do simple math.
So I'm simple now.
See, now you're taking my words and twisting it. So I'm not going to do this right-wing thing. I'm not saying that. Listen to what I say and go by what I say, not what you want to twist it into, because that's unfair. And then it changes the whole discussion.
No. This is actually a good discussion, but I have some questions that I think that will guide the discussion more, because actually I agree with you, Theus, about the ineffectiveness of the third-party movements. And I can at the same time support those people, but at the same time reveal the inefficiency of it too, because something that doesn't add up for me is this, and I'm a natural skeptic. My question for both of you is, why haven't third parties and independents grown since an earlier time? Because we talked about the 50s and the 60s. Third parties back then had way more of a presence than they do now. So the question is, how have we reverted as opposed to progressed when it comes to that?
I literally said the answer. Oh, you go ahead.
I don't think it's a reversion. It's a matter of one side is working hard constantly and the other side is not working with the same diligence. So you have to, if you want to change the game, you can't play the same game, right? So let's go with the 60s as like our check. Well, actually 1968. So 1970 as our starting point. So that's been what? 1970 was what, 40? What, how many? Do some math. 30, 55 years almost. Okay. So in those 55 years, what have they been doing? They have been getting Supreme Court justices. They have been getting judges. They have been buying Congress people. They have been creating stronger lobbies. They have been structuring corporations to operate in the shadows so that they can buy up anything that you try to put up. They do these things. They've been doing that for 50 solid years. Best example of that is Roe v. Wade, right? Tracy and I agree on Roe v. Wade. That thing should have been locked in tight way before.
Yep, had all those opportunities.
But
we agree on that.
But this is why I say it's a great example. Roe v. Wade was never truly settled, but we thought it was settled because they said it was settled. But you know that who you up against are liars, right?
Yeah, you knew what they want. You should have known what they wanted.
But what did they do? The moment Roe v. Wade got passed, first they led with terrorism, right? Started bombing clinics and doing all that. But that was their more aggressive end. That was their angry protest side, like the parallel we were talking about earlier. But what else they did? They started creating entire organizations. The Heritage Foundation, was built up during that time. They built the think tanks. They built universities. They built churches. They built all these things to feed their own new machine, so that when the time came, they could find that crack in the armor, and they could say, "Wait a minute, Roe v. Wade was actually decided based on rights of privacy rights." And so then they were like, "Okay, what do we need to do to knock that down?" During Obama's term, they went after privacy rights. You got rid of their collective bargaining. You got rid of how they can do search and seizure. They started weakening those posts that hold up your right to privacy, so that when they got the Supreme Court they needed, they could go right at the Fourth Amendment and say that is not strong enough to hold up your claim for Roe v. Wade, so it must all go. That's intelligent. Evil? Intelligent. What did the other side do? The other side was fighting on other things. I'm gonna use big we, didn't take Supreme Court seriously, didn't take local legislatures seriously, didn't take Congress seriously. And then we sit back and complain that they did. No, the problem is we didn't. So when I look at these things, I'm sitting here saying, look, guys, if it took them 50 years to get what they want, why do you think you can get it in 10? But seriously, why do you think in 10 years you can get it?
We're also conflating collective with individual, because at the end of the day, 3,000 people aren't in the booth together. One person is voting in the booth. If we're talking about voting. So my question is, we talked about the Ross Perot 18.9%, and we had Gary Johnson back in 2016 and Jill Stein. They had higher numbers nationally compared to the last election, for instance. I'm asking, why was there so much more dissent then in those earlier times, and we don't have that dissent now, to where, because at the end of the day, you're voting as a person. You're not voting as 3,000 people.
That's the problem.
There's
the problem right there.
There's three things that are taken. Steve, you want to go?
No, what's the problem, I guess?
No, I was going to say go.
The problem is when you think of it as you are one vote. That's the problem. What we're up against, the Republican Party, the conservative movement, does not think of themselves as one vote.
Nope.
Look at what they.
But you're putting me. I don't have an issue. Like, I see it as the same. We have an ideological difference. We're not going to change in that. So I don't. You're treating me as if I'm a Democrat, like, or
I'm not.
I'm on the other side.
Because I'm not. I'm not treating you as a Democrat, but I'm just strictly going off of the question you posed, right?
Yeah.
Right. So strictly looking at that matters, because that's the organizational piece. One of the other things that oftentimes goes unsaid is how masterful the Republican Party has gotten at mixing identity, religion, and politics into one entity.
Mm-hmm.
So if you try to assail the gates of the Republican Party, you have to unwind who I am, who I believe in, and who I love. Hard to do. That's why the Republican Party is like 95% homogenous. It's all white, right? They literally believe you can't be a follower of Christ and a Democrat. Okay? They raise their children up with that understanding. Democrats and other people, independents and so forth, we usually don't function that way. We raise our children. I want you to be the best person that you can be. We want you to find your level of self-actualization. We want you to explore yourself. We want you to develop yourself and do some good things along the way. That's an uneven fight. Because when the fight comes, you're going to have a whole army coming at you, and you are like, what's that? The story of the 300, right? You are 100 people standing on the bridge, right? So that's what I'm saying. If you want, this all goes back to organization. It all comes back to organization. And you don't have to be part of what I believe in organizing on. But third parties as a big group is too disjointed.
It is.
I agree with that.
So that means you got 5 little people trying to go up against 2 massive armies. Get your weight up. Fight that fight in the third party world. Because I think in a way, third parties are avoiding the fight. They're avoiding fighting each other. And I get the idea, right? We don't want to create all this chaos.
Drama for no reason.
Right? But the drama is needed because that's how you fight through the weightier ideas and ideals. And then out of that, you might come out of two independent parties. But those two parties will be so much stronger than the 5 to 10 or whatever that are out there right now. And so then they can come in and they can say, you know what? You won't put me on the debate stage with these two corrupt, paid for, might as well have came out of machine politicians. I have an entire platform that I can go to, come to gspan.com, and we're going to host our debate there. And because you've grown so much energy and so much focus, will you get what NBC just pulled together? No, because they're in everybody's platform and all that stuff. But let's say they get 100 million people, you might get 20 million people. 20 million is a lot of eyes. And done over years, they end up getting you into those spaces that you deserve to be in. But it doesn't matter what you deserve if you can't get there, right?
But I think to answer, I didn't mean to interrupt, but to answer Kiko's question about why the third party doesn't have the strength that it used to, there's 3 simple answers.
Okay.
Number 1 answer, the Deregulation of Telecommunications Act.
Okay.
That Bill Clinton signed, basically saying, hey, Blackwater and all these people could own television stations. Because used to be, I couldn't buy 2 television stations in the same market. Because that would be an interest. Now, I can buy 15 stations. That's
and it came back and bit them in the butt.
Exactly.
They did it to favor the Democrats, and then Fox was created.
Exactly. The second thing is Ross Perot happened. Ross Perot hear me out. Ross Perot getting 18.4% of the popular vote. 18.9, thank you for the correction. Percent of the vote was like, oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Problem. Here comes this. We got to avoid all of this. We got to make it harder for third-party candidates to get on the ballot. Yes. I don't care. Me and you hardly never agree on anything. It should not be hard for a third-party candidate. I shouldn't have to go out and get 37,000 signatures to get anybody on the ballot.
Agreed. The only reason you have to do that is because who owns the process?
No, I'm about to get to that. Thank you for mentioning it. I feel like if you want to run for president, you file your papers with the FEC, you put up a website, and you get front. Because I think we need more voices. You can't take 350 million people and put them in 2 categories. That makes no sense.
You're exactly 100%.
You trying to take we're all going to be different, right? We're going to have different, like I'm just totally third party. I'm basically the chance of me voting Democrat. I pretty much have a better chance of winning the lottery. If I went and buy a lottery ticket, I probably win that before I vote for Democrats. But when Ross Perot came, they said, oh, no, we about to make this hard. In Texas, you have to get 145,000 signatures, and you can't have a signature of somebody that voted in the primary. The system is broken, which is why I advocate for ranked choice voting. I know that's not a conversation America is wanting to have, but I advocate for it. I don't care if it's Robert F. Kennedy, who I'm not a fan. I think his whole campaign was a joke, but he had some good points.
Everybody got good points.
Solid points about the way that the system comes at people who are not anointed to take that place, especially.
But it was real rich coming from him. You got to admit.
I know. I'm saying he just. I agree with you. It wasn't like, dude, you can't come on for real. But his point was this. I know people are going to say the Democratic Party is and the Republican Party, they're private corporations and they can put up who they want.
Mm-hmm.
I will give the Republicans this. They did have a primary. They did have debates. I mean, they were there. I mean, sure, Trump didn't show up to him and he still won the nomination.
Exactly.
But they went
symbols over substance.
But I'd rather have, sometimes the symbol is all you have.
And you shouldn't settle for that. Literally, your whole argument is not settling for that. That's literally the argument that you and Kiko are making, that you should not settle for the dog and pony show.
At least they took the effort to have a debate. Now, was it a great debate? No, it was a terrible debate. We pretty much knew Trump is going to win the nomination.
But
hear me out, because I'm getting somewhere. I promise I'm getting somewhere. You had the opposite party, or the other side of the coin, because I still call them the uniparty, or what I like to call them demopubs. They said, no, Joe Biden's the nominee. That's just pretty much it. You had Marianne Williams, who, say what you want about Marianne Williams, she leans more to the left of where the Democratic Party is in some ways. Totally wrong about Israel. I'm like, girl, how you get that wrong? But she leans more to the left. You had Cenk Uygur, who technically couldn't even run because you weren't born in the United States.
Exactly.
And you had Dean Phillips. No, those people are not serious, as AOC wants to say. But mine is Cenk Uygur, because I'm like, dude, you can't be you can be governor. Like, you can be governor, senator, but you can't be president.
Mm-hmm.
They should have been given access to the primary process.
Okay, right? So here's the thing. Cenk, like you said, that was a publicity stunt. TYT was in trouble financially and viewership and all of that. So that was him trying to gain a little bit more energy back into it. I get it. Plus, he was very clear that he wanted to do a messaging campaign anyway. So I respect that. I don't respect the first part, but I do respect the second part. But I lost part of the trail. But when you look at this thing about the third parties, how the Democrat Party and Republican Party responded to that insurrection, so to speak, was exactly what you should have expected out of that situation. Like, I think this is how my frustration rises, is that people oftentimes speak of what should be, but that has as much value as spitting in the wind. I mean, what should be does not just materialize.
Here's my question to you,
at the end of a lot of work.
Here's my question, though. How do you call yourself the Democratic Party, and the way you run your primaries is they have literally done this. They did it with Hillary. Let me backtrack. The only reason they had a primary when Trump was president is because, well, Trump was running. That's the only time they've had a debate. I haven't seen a Democratic debate since.
So first of all, 2000. They had debates. They stopped having debates with Trump. The game completely changed on both sides. The game completely changed. Now those of us who've been watching politics for a while, we can't sit here and pretend otherwise. We've long known that these debates are a joke.
Yeah, they're definitely a joke.
They get in there, they talk, they don't
say
explore
nothing
or go into any policy.
Mm-hmm.
They're taught to evade and elude. They're only trying to get a good soundbite so that it can be repeated in commercials and ads. So we know that. And if we know that, why do we really want more of that? So if you're not going to have a policy debate, don't have a debate. So it's kind of like when I was saying symbol over substance, and you were like, sometimes the symbol's all you have. Well, then sometimes you need to go ahead and reject the symbol too.
I agree.
Right?
I agree with that.
Stop letting people play in your face and then complain about it. That is like irrational to me.
But,
so you were saying
I agree where you're going. Here's my only thing, because I didn't get to my third thing. So I said Ross Perot, that to me was the game changer, because they was
deregulation. And what's your third?
Deregulation. That's number one. Ross Perot, number two. But and this comes back to, this is probably why I don't have a lot of subscribers, because sometimes the electorate has to step up and take the blame for what's going on. Yeah, I know I said it. Kiko didn't say it.
There's
Theus
nothing
didn't
wrong
say
with
it.
it.
I
You
say it
don't
all
have
the time.
Tracy said
you
it.
don't have to on this show. You can say what you want. You don't have to.
The electorate keeps saying they're crooks. You go into the booth and say, you know what? Well, I'd rather have this crook than that one. If you reject, it's the whole lesser two evils argument. It's like we stop caring. Like y'all know me.
No.
I advocate for Medicare for all. I'm in the streets protesting. I'm advocating for it. I'm always talking about it because it's something I care about.
Agreed.
I'm an anomaly. You're an anomaly.
So here's my pushback to you. Here's my pushback to you, because this is something we've talked about in the past. You want Medicare for all. Given your positioning, where your party affiliation currently lies, which I pointed out, and it wasn't to attack you, it's to highlight the fact that you have moved between parties, even in this season. So that's part of the issue that I see in the independent movement, is the two adrift. But you don't vote for the Democrat. You don't vote for the Republican.
Nope.
Right? But you want universal health care or Medicare for all. How did your vote get you closer?
Here's what I will say on that.
No, ask that.
No, I'm agreeing.
That's a very important question. I'm actually curious to your response.
Yeah, so here's how I'll answer it. For me, because Medicare for all is so important. And I said this in the beginning of this when I got on. I will absolutely not. I don't care if you dog catcher. I don't care if you mayor. I don't care if you utter the words, I'm against Medicare for all. Or do like Harris did, say she's for it. She measures the win, and now she's all of a sudden against it.
Yeah. That's calculated. Yeah.
That's a calculated. I don't know.
You have to do it. I'm just saying. Okay.
For me, what gets me closer is the way I'm looking to change the system in a long term. Like, I'm playing the long game, right?
Well, walk it out for me.
I am. So for me, voting for, and y'all already know, I got a whole show dedicated to Dr. Cornel West campaign. That's who I'm voting for. You're not going to change my mind.
Trying to.
Me voting for him, who supports what I support, is far more important than me voting for Harris and Trump, who I know doesn't support.
So the principle of it is more important than the application.
Here's what I'm going to add, though. It's my duty, since I say I'm for Medicare for all, is to educate the public about Medicare for all, because I have a responsibility, right? I'm not putting it all on the politician to advocate, because even my congressman, he says he's for Medicare for all. He's a co-sponsor of it, but he never speaks about it.
Never pushes it, yeah.
He doesn't push it. I can't depend on him to push what I want. It's going to be up to me to push what I want. And that means organizing. That means talking to people. That means tabling at events. That means doing videos, having discussions, planning marches. It means all of those things. So yes, me putting my vote, Cornel West is saying, hey, I support what you support and I want you to carry it. But I know that I have a responsibility to do my part. I can't just say, well, I'm for it. I'm not going.
But see, this is where this is important. This is important. So I live a good deal in Black media, quote unquote, Black media, where Dr. West can get a mic anytime he wants, anytime, because we love Dr. West. He's got 60 years of history of us loving Dr. West. He ain't even out there talking like this. Okay, half the time you listen to him talk, and this is just his rhetorical style, but he floats all over the place. So he's not going to be the vessel to push Medicare for all. He just won't be against it. And then what you were just saying is, but then it comes back to me as an individual. What am I passionate about? What do I believe in? So understanding I now have someone who's not going to oppose me, I will now work for it as an individual to try to get more individuals and try to get more consensus and try to grow. It's no different than people who are on the proverbial left in the Democratic Party who look at it and say, okay, we used to have pure private health insurance and it was bad. It was bad. Like, you ain't have insurance, you ain't have insurance. That's what it was. Sorry. Then we got whatever the was it Affordable Care Act that came in. Okay. And the whole time that was being done, we were like, hey, we want a public option. We want a public option. We want a public option. But Obama was like, no, we ain't ready for that. So we're going to do this thing. All right. Kamala and Joe are more in favor of a public option, but they don't want to give you universal health care. They don't want to do Medicare for all. Why? Because they don't want to deal with the other part, which I'll hit on in a second. So I don't like incremental change when change is what we need. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. We need better, and you're deciding to give me a concession. Okay. But that is the reality of life across history. So what makes me any different? So my job is to continue to move the ball, move it further when I can, move it a little bit when I can. So that is why a person like myself will vote for a ticket of a Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris is not threatening to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. Donald Trump is promising to get rid of it. And when asked again after 10 years, what's the plan? Oh, it's going to be great, but right now we just have a concept of a plan. That means there is no plan. That means give it back to the insurance companies full bore. Now, what does that look like? See, I like to think things all the way out here. What does that look like? The best way you can tell what that would look like is you look at what property and casualty insurance companies are doing right now. They are selecting their insurers. That's what happens when you pull the government out of healthcare and you just give it back to the private insurance companies. They do like they're doing in Florida, California, and places like that. It's like, whoa, costs too much, not going to insure you. I'm out, right? And what do people do? The same people who voted to give more power to these private corporations, what do? They turn around and they look at the government and they say, how you going to help me? The same people you told to get out your business, now you want their help. When what you should have been doing all along is trying to get us to this universal health care, trying to get a federally backed insurer that is supported by the states, as opposed to all these state entities, because Florida can't afford to do their insurance now. So it all comes together. That's why you get so much pushback from me, Tracy. It's not the idea at the end of the road. It's all about everything in the middle. You can't convince me that getting rid of the Affordable Care Act is better than having the Affordable Care Act, because I haven't personally had to use it, but I've had people who work for me who had to use it. I've had friends and family who had to use it. I had people who couldn't afford to get insurance before, but now they can stretch and get it here, right? You were pointing out the insurance plan is $400 or $500 a month. Okay, you know what? That's what most of us pay anyway, even through our jobs. It's just that it's broken up in half in our insurance. I pay almost $500 a month. Exactly. So you can't measure everything by your own lived experience. It's not about just how I feel about a thing. It's about how many people didn't even have access to a high deductible plan so that they would have catastrophic care. There are a lot of people who didn't have it. So the Affordable Care Act comes in and they give you insurance plans. And those of us who have jobs that give us insurance, we also know they keep trying to push you towards the high deductible plans because they're cheaper, right? But really the deductible is so high that you might as well be self-insured, right? That would be so much worse. Or have a chronic
disease and you know you're going to meet it.
Exactly. That would be so much worse, though, without the Affordable Care Act, because what the Affordable Care Act does do is you can get that policy and you at least have catastrophic care. You can get admitted to the hospital. You can get admitted to the ER. Even though you ain't got no money, you got that insurance plan, and they'll go ahead and let you in. Where they got people right now, they're supposed to let you in, but if you ain't got no proof of insurance whatsoever, you might be sitting in the hallway, right? So I feel like sometimes you can't discard good because you couldn't get better, right? That's one of my frustrations. So you say you want universal. I keep saying it. I'm sorry. You say you want Medicare.
It's like you can.
They're very, very close. But I want to respect your terminology. You say you want Medicare for all, and your party candidate that you support is saying, "Hey, I'm for that." Okay.
No, not only is he for it, he advocates for it.
Okay. He can advocate. Great. So he advocates. He has a larger voice. Okay. He advocates for it. He has a larger voice. Okay. I got that. Okay. How does he deliver?
Well, first he would have to get elected.
Okay. Let's pretend he gets elected.
There's two. Okay. So I'm gonna mention another podcast on him. There are things that the president can do in government.
He cannot create a health insurance plan.
No, he cannot.
I don't care what nobody tell you. He can't do it.
No, that's not what my point was going to be. He has one thing that nobody else in the House or the Senate has, and that's the bully pulpit. I wish, because let me tell you how powerful the bully pulpit is, because I'm going to use LBJ as an example.
Okay, we're going to go back 60 years for that.
I'm going to go back 60 years because he's the best example I can think of.
Yeah, 60 years ago.
That man, he dropped a couple of M-bombs.
Lyndon Baines Johnson didn't even like black people. It was the stuff that was happening outside of him.
Understand, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is when he wanted something, he knew how to use his power to get what he wanted.
That was a different time.
I understand that. But again, the president, I know Joe Biden's has disappeared. I don't know where he at, to be honest.
You do know where he at. He shows up every time there's an event, every time he has to negotiate. You see the man on TV. It's not that he's disappeared. But I'm not here to defend Joe Biden. It's because you're running for president and the people they focus on is Trump and Kamala, and that's what they do. But let's go back to what we were saying. How would President Cornel West deliver universal health care?
Okay, so I'm getting to my answer. So I believe, of course, if he gets in, is one going to be some silly court case because this country, I don't know if this country is really ready for an independent to be president. Here's how I believe he can be effective in getting what I ultimately want. Two ways. One, other independents start running for Congress.
Okay.
That's one way. Because Congress is every 2 years, right?
For the House.
For the House, 6 years for the Senate. So you get people running the House and in the Senate. That's one way. But when I'm talking about the bully pulpit, he's going to have a hard time getting this to his desk. So what he does is he starts having a press conference, having a rally. He does what Bernie Sanders did when Obama was president, and he didn't like what Obama was doing. Having protests, having sit-ins, having using his voice. Now, Bernie was just a senator. But the president, every time the president opens his mouth, somebody's got a mic asking him a question.
Yes.
You could do a nationwide address. Just sit there at 8 o'clock in the evening, be like, I'm going to talk to y'all about why Congressman XYZ won't pass health care costs.
They won't do that. He wouldn't even do that.
Why?
Tracy, I believe, Tracy, you're presupposing a lot of stuff, Tracy, because the reason why I agree with this is that you're talking about an era that's almost completely influenced by lobbying. I mean, you're talking about a bully pulpit, but I would argue that the lobbyists are the bully pulpit. I would argue that the lobbyists.
I absolutely don't agree with that at all.
You don't think so?
No, because again, the president has something. That bully pulpit, like I said, when he opens his mouth, it may not get on CBS.
Tracy.
It may not get on NBC. Hold on.
Tracy.
It may not get on. Somebody is going to be listening to him or her, or in my case,
Yes.
Dr. West, because he's president of the United States.
But we listen less. All right, here's a good way to illustrate part of the issue.
It's like we accept mediocrity.
It's not about accepting mediocrity. It's about working inside of a broken and corrupt system. Mm-hmm. But the amount of when George W. Bush was president, he was still in an era that if he's decided, hey, the president's going to talk at 8:00, all the networks tuned in, anybody who had anything tuned in, because even if you didn't like the president, which most of us did not, you gave the respect to the office that the president of the United States is speaking. Then came Obama. He had some of that, but he would be frozen out of like Fox and things like that. Then comes
him being on Fox.
Go back and check it out. This is what they did. Fox would be selective of when they would cover when President Obama was speaking. And they would oftentimes do his things after he did it. They wouldn't do it live.
Oh, yeah.
That was the beginning of playing those games. Now we're at a time where we all choose our own media. Everything is a la carte for us. So if Trump is talking, I ain't got to hear that. If Biden's talking, I ain't got to hear that. Right? Like I can literally opt out. There is no central thing anymore for that. So the bully pulpit is more diffuse, but that still is not governing. Okay.
Right. Oh, I think it's governing. Because
it's not governing.
If you twist the arm, if you twist the arms of people enough,
but you twist people behind the scenes. You don't twist them on TV.
That was gonna be my next point. Thank you for getting to it. That's the other thing that a president can do. And I'm going to use this as an example because it's almost time for me to do my podcast. But when the whole $15 minimum wage and every Republican voted against it, Joe Biden should have been holding a press conference and literally named every single Republican that voted against it.
It wouldn't have done any good.
Along with the 8 Democrats that said, we Democrats, but we're going to vote against it.
Wouldn't have done good. The part that you're deliberately overlooking is a very important tool, and it's called leverage. You can't use leverage at all times. You have to be tactical about when you deploy it and how you use it. And the best leverage you have is being able to threaten the members of your own party. Because you can say, you know what? I am the Democratic Party. So if you don't get in line, I'm not going to even allow what you want to make it to the floor. Because I have a good relationship with Schumer.
Did Biden or Obama or Clinton or any president?
All of them do it. All of them do it. Trump does it so much in open that he kept doing it after he was no longer president.
Yeah, because he literally talked in senators of
to block the border bill.
Yeah, to block the border. I agree with that.
That's leverage, right? Where I keep coming back, and it's like a slippery fish in a way, if someone like a Cornel West becomes president, I guess that's a better way of presenting the question. What leverage does he have? And if the only leverage you can bring up is the bully pulpit, then
getting more independents elected.
Right. But see, that's another thing. And I love that because this is just going into math, right? He gets elected. He has a 4-year term. He has to deal with the Congress that he has. That whole Congress will be against him. The whole Congress
all of them would be
against him because he beat their Democrat and he beat their Republican. So he has no friends. None.
Anywhere.
Right? There's 2 or 3 people who were like, hi, right? So that means he's lame the moment he gets in. Only thing he can do is start a war. And he doesn't believe in wars, so he ain't starting no war. So he ain't got nothing. So, okay, we got to get people in there. Okay. So you've already put your king on the board and you haven't put any of the other pieces in yet. I'm saying you're doing it backwards. I'm saying get your pieces on the board first because it takes 2 years, 1 to 2 years to get you anybody that you think can come back up, Dr. West. those same people have to navigate the Democrats and the Republicans at the local, state, and federal level to get there. So they're going to get beat up, bruised up, take different positions, and do all those things because they have to in order to get into the office. So you've just wasted a year. You just wasted 2 years. You still don't have majority numbers. Then, okay, well, we got to keep waiting. We got to keep waiting. All right, so 3rd year, 4th year, he's gone now. What did we accomplish? I'm saying if you want Dr. West to be president, get him some help before he gets there. That's the lesson we should have learned with Obama. Obama came into office and we ain't send no help. We was like, hey,
no, wait a minute, backtrack.
No, let me hear it.
Obama had
one second.
Congress
He went in.
2 years.
He went in. His first 2 years, he had a Democratic majority, but those weren't his Democrats. So he went in and he said, and people want to ignore what he said. He said, you have to push me. He wasn't saying that because he was obstinate. He was saying that because he knows how the game works. In order to get the president to be able to do something and to have that bully pitch you pointed at, you need to give him some friction. Bernie Sanders, Dr. West, to his credit, they were giving him some friction. Obama was in there and they're like, nah, Obama, you got to do this. You got to do that, right? They were giving him the friction so that he could move in those areas because he could always play it off as, well, I have to respond to the growing progressive base of the party and make sure that they get a little something because otherwise we will lose them in the next election, right? That's how the game is played. I'm just saying you're doing it backwards. Get the help you want in there first, then put Dr. West in and watch him work. Personally, I don't think Dr. West is the kind of cat that I want to be president, but that's mine, so I wouldn't vote for him. But you would. Get him some people.
I'm going to be honest with you. There's a lot going on with the conversation, but I think my biggest critique that I have for third parties and independents, even though, because like I've said before, I've not voted in elections, 2-year and 4-year cycles. I have no issue with that. If I don't like anybody and I think everybody's crap, I won't support them. And I won't support this sham of a system because I will contend that the more that you all talk, the more I think of why I never voted, like in some of those instances, is because my question was specifically independents and third parties, and a lot of people within the movement, they spend more time talking about the duopoly than they do building the movement. And I hear a lot of that tonight. Like we talk more about Kamala and Trump. We need to focus on ourselves, though.
What
we
do
don't
you
need
want
to
to
focus
do?
on the duopoly. And
that's because.
And that's a significant problem I have. There's always a reference back to the duopoly. And I'm like, why does that have to be the case if we're trying to build something outside of it?
Okay, so can I answer that question?
Of course you can.
One, because they're so terrible, you have to say, look how terrible these people are. Don't you want something different? Okay. This is where the media plays a significant role. Nobody ever wants to listen to me. That's okay.
Because it's a cop-out.
That's not a cop-out. The media basically shut Marianne Williamson out.
Yes,
but she was running as a Democrat.
She was running as a Democrat.
The party shut her down.
The party shut her down.
Okay, y'all not letting me get to my point.
Okay.
My point is this. Okay. When the media wants to shut you down, they will shut you down. Look at what they did to even Dr. West. Dr. West was on CNN maybe 4 weeks ago. Maybe 4 weeks ago. And the question to the reporter asked, and I specifically remember this because I threw something at the TV. She said, are you going to drop out and support Harris? Because she knew he was never would even consider supporting Trump. And he said, no, I'm in this race until the end of the race. She literally says, it sounds like you're on the fence. And I'm like, what did she hear? Like, is she listening to the same thing?
The person that you're seeing doing the interview is responding to the script that was given to them.
Thank you. You just got to my point. My point is this is how the media plays a part in this.
I get that.
We get that.
Because I haven't.
But they're not going to get out your way. Okay, I'm sorry.
They get in the way on purpose. They decide who they're going to put in the candidates, and they decide who's going to get that exposure. When a third party candidate is running, exposure is everything. Because you could
Okay.
have the greatest platform ever, but if nobody knows you, like when I would talk to people about Dr. West when I was doing a petition, one, nobody knew who he was because guess what they said to me? I've never seen him on TV. That was literally what they were saying to me. I've never seen him on TV. What can I say? They were right.
Tracy, if the Oakland Raiders organization came to you, Las Vegas, you see how dated I am with sports. If the Las Vegas Raiders came to you and said, we want to sponsor your channel and we want you to run Raiders no. advertisement, all that, and then they'll say, well, why are you blocking our voice?
But what I'm saying is that media exposure for a third party, because the Democrats are going to get that exposure, Republicans get exposure, but a third party candidate that basically is running on $5,000 and a hope and a prayer.
And they shouldn't be running them. Get your weight up.
But how are they going to see? That's the thing that drives.
You got to play the long game that you were talking about.
Something else that doesn't make sense too is that there is organizational capacity, because if people are able to meet these ballot requirements, then that means that there is a movement going on. That means that there are people that are willing to support a Jill Stein.
And if they aren't taken to the courts, and if they
they tried to bankrupt Kennedy by keeping them in the courts. I get it.
Right.
Yeah, I understand if you already got 50 cents, you can't be affording to go to court because you need to be on the ground. But like I said, I'm using an example of when I was petitioning for Dr. West. The number one thing they said was, when I said, well, how come you don't know who Dr. West is? I've never seen him on TV.
But here's the thing, Tracy. Dr. West has he's one of the most name recognized people out there. So that tells you something. If people don't even know who he is, that kind of tells you a little bit. And then two, they don't know that he's running for president. That also tells you something. Yes, the media only cares about money. They don't care. I mean, this is my objective view.
Or they'll tell them, oh, you're giving the race to Trump. Oh, please don't get me on that argument.
That's fine. They're going to say what they say. Because in a way, we're just talking, if we're just doing it by the math, like you talked about Perot, that's the danger, right? Because Republican Party is homogenous. It's locked in. It's pretty solid. If you notice, Trump's thing doesn't move much. It stays just like this. It just wiggles a little bit. It doesn't go up or down too much.
Because he has a base.
Because he has a base. He had basically white people in America, right? Like
that's not entirely true either.
It's not entirely true.
No, because he's got a lot of.
But it's not. Look at the demographics. Hold on. Well, I know because I said white, it creates another thing. Look at the demographics and look at the base. Okay, that base doesn't move that much. It's been solid for him the entire time. Okay, so if we don't want to talk about race, then we won't.
Yeah, I know we didn't have to do it because the Republican Party, we know that was. I agree that it wasn't hard to do because it was already there, the infrastructure.
Well, in a way, because he had to take it over, right? He had to reshape it. But the Democratic Party is not a cohesive bunch. Right? No, it's a collection of aggrieved groups. Right? Every group in the Democratic Party has a grievance. They're all coming from some level of disenfranchisement, except for some of like certain levels of our white brothers and sisters. But their interests are in vulnerable positions and things like that. So that means that you're cobbling things together. You got a lot of voices going out there. So it's not going to be as locked in. It still takes me back though, when we were talking about Dr. West and people like him, because I'm not picking on Dr. West. I'm just saying people like him who are trying to run for president, getting the job takes a lot. And saying that the media, okay, it's like saying the air, the water,
well, there's more than that is a factor. I mean, I'm using the media as my prime example.
But I'm not picking at you. It's what
no, I know you're not
constantly brought.
But it's ballot access. It's the state. It's the state.
Yes.
Like in Indiana, they make it so hard. Anybody. I signed a petition for Robert F. Kennedy to get on the ballot. Am I going to vote for RFK in Indiana? No, I will not.
That's cool.
But
You believe any and everybody should have a voice if they want to.
You know what,
I personally don't believe any and everybody should have a voice because they want to. I don't think every friend's voice should be heard. And that's what the filtering system works. The filtering system works. And the problem is the filtering system is broken. So it's blocking out some voices that should get through. Right. But any and everybody thoughts shouldn't be rolling around out there. That's why we got YouTube. YouTube will let everybody thoughts come out there. Right?
Well, he has a right to run, but I also have a right not to.
He has a right to run. He has a right to run. Everyone has a right to run. If you satisfy those core requirements, you have a right to run. That's like saying I have the right to play to try out for the high school football team. As long as I am a male and I can go out there on the football field, I have the right to compete for a spot on the football team. I agree. But then once you get out there, it's going to be about your talent. It's going to be how you network. It's going to be who else is speaking for you. See, it's not this utopia type thing. No matter what you want to do, you want to go on a job. You want that promotion. You think, well, I do a good job. I'm well qualified for this role. I should get this role. But you don't network. You don't have anybody who's willing to talk for you in the room that you can't get into. There's more that goes into this. So yeah, Dr. West has every right to run for president. And he did.
I got something to add.
Not the way some people talk about it. Nah, not you, but I've heard some people. He shouldn't run. He should work. Why am I?
Well, that's a tactical thing. That's their opinion.
We get we follow this enough, especially myself being a part of the third party and independence struggle now for at least 15 years now. Like I totally get what you're preaching to the choir, because my audience, we're already accustomed to what Dr. West is going through, the smears,
and I'm just using
the death threats, and everything else. Like he's been on the show twice. He's been on the show twice. You've been on 3. This is a 4th time. So my audience already knows that's already baked into this conversation. But I was more so thinking of just like the independence and the third party, the whole concept. And I'll be honest with you, I've never said this on any of my shows. The first time I'm saying it. When I talk to people, specifically about these people, Claudia de la Cruz, Cornel West, Jill Stein, the first thing I get from people, who the hell are these people? That's the first thing I get. I'm being honest. I'm being straight up honest. And I'm going to tell you something. These people, the more I talk to them, they would not support those people anyway. Even in that situation, they wouldn't support them. The reason why is because everyone gets introduced into the political process a different way. We're talking about anywhere from 18-year-old all the way to 90 years old. Like there's such a span of people. So an 18-year-old for their first election is probably more likely to support a duopoly candidate. That's just the reality.
Do whatever their parents did or their friends did.
Because that's exactly
they do what their parents
did. Copying the trends. I mean, we did. I know I did. I voted for.
No, I did not.
Democrat the first time. Well, you did. Yeah, but you have supported Democrats in the past.
That one time, and I'm gonna take exception. I want to go back in time and kick my own butt for doing that. That wasn't good of me to do.
You make the best decision that you can make at the time that you made the decision.
That one time, I was like, then I said,
and even in Tracy, if you're being honest with yourself, because I posed this to you and critiqued some of your commentary for this particular reason, you're more Democrat adjacent still, in my opinion. You're more of a Democrat adjacent. You are just based on just the
policies you advocate for are represented on the Democratic side of the ticket more than on the Republican side of the ticket.
That's all I'm not saying that you are a Democrat.
I'm not saying you are.
That you're Democrat adjacent. Cornel West is Democrat adjacent.
Yes, he
supported Biden the last election cycle.
Not because he wanted to, because he felt he had to.
It doesn't
if
matter.
Dr. West had a pathway inside the party, he would have done it.
He's more adjacent to the Bernie wing. That would be a lie to suggest otherwise. Because he worked with Bernie. He endorsed Bernie.
He's worked with Democrats for years.
He's also endorsed Ralph Nader. He also endorsed Jill Stein.
I get that, but he's more democratically adjacent is the only point I'm making.
We're talking about the ideology, not the party affinity.
I'm not talking about... But see, that type of reaction is what I get all the time with some of the peers that we talk to, like the independence people, the third party. It's almost like they're doubting themselves in a way. And it's like they don't know what direction they're going in. And that's what Theus, I think, is getting at. And even though I will support a non-duopoly candidate this time around, and even in the local elections and stuff, I understand. Like, I get Theus's criticism. Like, I get it has to be a criticism that
it
that
has
we
to be
take into
criticism.
consideration.
You can't grow without criticism.
Well,
If
I
you
guess
just
what it's
think
kind of
everything is hunky dory and we just walk in the streets of gold, no, that's not going to grow a third party.
I just think
all.
that we have to look at things more pragmatically. I see the value of the dreams. I'm a dreamer, right? You know the organization I'm trying to build and how on paper it sounds wonderful, but in the world that we live in, so I get that. But it always comes back to, no matter what you want, how do you get there? In this, there's steps involved. There's opposition. There's pushback that's going to come. Have you mapped out the landscape? Do you know what your opponent is going to do in response to you so that you can then respond to that? And if each time someone pushes back against us, we say, well, because of this. You knew that going in.
Mm-hmm.
You knew the ballot process was what it was going in. You knew the party opposition was what it was going in. You knew the media structure is what it was going in. You knew the Congress situation is what it was going in.
Yeah, that's true.
In fact, part of the reason you want to do this is because you see those things and you want to change those things. So great. Now, how do you get there? Do you go in there with 5 people or do you go in there with 5,000? Do you go in there with $5 or do you go in there with 5,000? See, it's
hard to, I get where you're going. I get it, and
this
I'm not disagreeing.
This is my take on independence.
But
not independence, I'm sorry, third party.
As a person that once stupidly considered running for office, I was like, nah, that not, because I got several problems with running. Number one, I'm not gonna take money from anybody. That's me.
I get it, but that's one of the things. Things are very nuanced.
No, right, but when you think about what it takes, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Green, Libertarian, PSL, Socialist Party, Black Radical Party, to say you want to put yourself on the line and to go out there and ask for money. I'm still wondering, how did the Democratic Party raise $500 million? Like what?
I can tell you know how they did it.
How's that hard to believe, though?
You know how they did it.
No, but I'm just saying, and I'm going to answer my own question. It's because they were willing to do something I'm not. I'm not going to sell myself to PACs. I'm not going to sell myself to APAC, the pharmacy lot. That's just not something I'm willing to do. Here comes my point. When you take that path, that very difficult path, yes, you should know that it's going to be harder, because people not going to give to third party candidates the way that they do major party. They just not.
You've chosen intentionally, and this is not criticism.
But
it's just acknowledge what you've done.
No, I'm not saying it's criticism. I'm just saying this is the reality.
I get it, but when we ask,
it takes money to move things, right?
Because questions you come back with dark money, corporate money, and media. And what I'm saying is those are all true things. But when you have chosen to be an outsider, you've chosen, in a manner of speaking, to be a revolutionary. You've chosen this. You've literally chosen a losing strategy. You've chosen it. So now you have to redefine what success looks like. And I don't think that people are realistically doing that, right? Like, I know the things that I believe in are truly part of a losing strategy, but I believe it's a worthwhile fight and it's a worthwhile path to walk, right? So I don't go in expecting the media to be favorable to me. If my organization truly grows and starts doing the things that I plan on it doing, one of the things I expect will ultimately happen is national media is going to want to come talk to me. I've already decided I don't want to talk to them, right? I will just stick with low, small independents and so forth. And there's danger there too, right? But I know it's coming. I know there'll be death threats, because whenever someone opposes you, that's what they do. I know that all of a sudden I wouldn't be able to work in corporate America because I will now be in disfavor to some of the more powered money because I'm trying to help the people that they currently profit off of, right? I know these things. I know these things are coming. So I am now trying to prepare and build in such a way that that stuff can be taken care of. One of my favorite parallels is the Nation of Islam. I don't agree with the Nation of Islam's religion. I don't, because I don't rock with no religion, right? But I do believe in the social good that they have tried to bring into the Black community in America as a whole. I believe in starting businesses and raising your children up to go to work in those businesses and then sending them off to college so they can come back and run those businesses and build them bigger. I believe in starting little small clinics where we can't do nothing at that clinic but put some bandages and some gauze and some alcohol wipes in it. But we keep doing it. We keep taking money from each other until we can hire someone to go in there and be a CNA or a nurse's aide. And now they're able to help a little bit. And then we grow from there. Next thing you know, you have a community hospital or you have a community clinic. See, I believe in these things, but I also know the people who don't want me to do that, not going to help me. They're not. Not only they're not going to help me, they're going to push back.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing because, and that was one of my favorites. I do. Because I hear what you're saying. I actually agree with what you're saying. When you go in and you know you're the underdog, you got to figure out ways to work around it. You just have to. There's no way, because you know you're not going to, you can write all the press releases you want. Basically, you're not going to get media coverage. So you got to create your own media coverage, right?
Even if I give you coverage,
it's not going to be positive, right?
Right, I'm going to slant it.
Look at, and I don't like to use Jill Stein as examples, but she's the best example I have. She's literally already being blamed for Kamala losing an election that hasn't even happened. I'm like, it hasn't.
Right. But that always happens. The Democrats will always blame the third party every time because we have a fractured group in the Democratic Party. So anything that pulls any votes, it pulls from there first.
Don't blame her before. Let her lose.
Yes, you do. You have to. This is a fight, Tracy. This is a fight. So you don't let your opponent run unobstructed, even if they're small, because small people get big. So you fight them while they're small. That's what you do.
Or you could take the good ideas that, because I do mostly agree with the Green Party.
Well, they do take some of our good ideas.
I agree with the Green Party's platform. Ideally, there's some parts I'm like, ooh, I don't really rock with that. I agree more with Dr. West's platform than I do the Green Party. But I'm just, of course, because I'm using the Green Party as an example.
Okay.
They could say, no, let me make this point, and then I'm done. They took a good idea, and I'm saying both parties are guilty of this. They will take a movement, and they will co-opt that movement.
Yes.
Black Lives Matter stopped marching when Joe Biden got elected.
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
He gave them some things. He gave them some things. Plus, the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement were kept very much under wraps. And then someone was able to get to one of them and start saying, hey, you should start getting recognized for the work that you do. And then that person started being gelled into being the face, even though she was just one of many. And that was how they fractured a group. It's what they do. It's what power does. And power would be neglectful if it didn't. You are running a thing and an interloper comes in to disrupt that. What do? You either go destroy it, take it over, or you weaken it until it falls apart. Mm-hmm. The story of the Black Panther Party, mm-hmm. the story of Marcus Garvey, the story of Martin Luther King, the start of Elijah Muhammad. It's mind-boggling to me because it's literally what they're supposed to do.
I did that part. I'm going to disagree with, but I get where you're going.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying if you have power and someone wants to take power, you have to react to that power. If someone came to your house and said, Tracy, I ain't got nowhere else to go, so I'm gonna move in here.
Okay,
what you gonna do?
Before she leaves, I have to give her this one question to answer because I know she has the show to go to.
Yep, I got to show in 5 minutes.
I need to really get clarification as to why, like, what is so different about the Green Party's platform and Cornel West and Claudia De La Cruz? Like, I'm confused. I really need to know this answer.
Okay, so again, this is what happens. This is the ugly side of politics. And I'll answer the question this way. Hopefully it answers it. Because I specifically asked Dr. West, hey, I asked him why he wasn't at the debates. And he said himself, you know, I agree with most of what the Green Party says, but personal conflicts got in the way. I'm just kind of like summarizing his answer. And that's what happens, because guess what happens? People are involved in politics. And sometimes what happens when you're not looking for the greater good, and yes, I did say this when Dr. West was there, when you're not looking for the greater good, you get caught up into personal things. Do I think that those parties should put aside everything? Yes. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. I don't think it's going to happen. Would I love it? Would I love for a PSL, Green Party, the Justice for All Party, the Black Liberation Party, the Socialist Party to all come together, and the Communist Party to come together, work together? Absolutely. Problem is, you got people running it. That happens in the, unfortunately, it's not something I'm proud of, because that's a criticism I have of third party. I'm like, we need to be working together. I've always put up the model of, hey, we run this one person for president, and then at the local level, you know, you run whoever it is you want to run. But all of us together support this one candidate for president, because I think that's what needs to be done. Nobody's listening to that.
No one's doing that at all.
No, but this is what I'm saying.
And you can't do it without a fight.
Right. But what I'm saying, it's a side I don't like. And that's probably my number one critique of the third party system is we do not coordinate when we absolutely have to. That and I'll say that, and you know, nobody has to like me, because like I rarely care if people like me. I like me, so I'm cool with that. But it's one of my critiques. It's like, guys, what's the difference between $25 an hour and $2? You can't come to get, like, whatever beef y'all had, whatever argument you had, it's that deep. Y'all adults, y'all should be able to sit down, talk out your differences, shut out whatever it is you disagree with. Because we're not good. The three of us don't agree. I literally agree with nothing Thea says, hardly. There's not anything that we both consider and say, you know what, he's right about that. I think
no, actually, I can. It's just you like being antagonistic towards me, and that's part of our relationship.
I do not like being antagonistic. You like being antagonistic towards me.
No, I take your ideas and just say explain them.
You and Marlon jump on me a whole lot. Don't even never. But
I love you though.
And of course I love you. Nothing. You're gonna always be my brother. Whether I had to come down there to Georgia and be like, let me tell you something. But as much as we disagree, if it really got to that point, although he doesn't have my number, I'd give Marlon and be like, what's his phone number? And I'm picking up the phone like, hey, what I don't appreciate is you saying this. We're gonna figure out something. If we're working on a project together, we're gonna, like, let's say, because one of my dreams is to organize a reparations march. It's just like one of the big, because y'all know I got these big visions to do. They just come to me. I don't know where they come from, but they just come. If me and Theus are co-chairs, I'm just using this as an example, and we disagree, if reparations is our goal, that's our goal, we're going to do it. We have to learn to put aside our differences. It's my biggest third-party gripe ever is we do not know how to work together. And it agitates the entire crap out of me. Because if we work together, we could change some stuff.
Isn't that the history of the left? Isn't that what the left has been?
To an extent. So, like, in the third parties, in my biased opinion, is very what's it called? Ego driven.
Yeah.
So
that's what
each
the problem is.
Person who's heading up these new pop-up, businesses, I call like pop-up startups, they feel they are the one that needs to be president and can be the one to solve all the problems. And so everyone else is opposition. So you're not going to get the discussion that Tracy is talking about. You're not even going to get the meetings of the minds that Tracy is talking about, because at the end of the day, they're fighting for the same job, right?
Yep.
It would be good if those third party heads came together and said, we are going to develop and groom the candidate that will best represent all of our ideals. But first, we need to get together and create what that platform is.
Or if yeah.
But how do you tell someone whose number one priority is universal health care that no, your number one priority should be prison reform, but no, your number one priority should be people with disabilities, right? You can't. These people are very strong-willed and strong-minded, and they're building organizations around that. That's why you're so fragmented. That's why there's so many small things.
Yeah,
and to expect them to come together
that's why I say it won't happen. It should, because it should be about serving the people.
But that takes forms. The Democratic Party is about serving people. The Republican Party is about serving people. It's about which people and how they want to serve.
Right. But I'm saying in terms of the third party, again, because there's several issues. There's I call them the rainbow community, because I forget all the letters.
I just call them the queer community, but yeah, LGBTQ+.
I'm not real comfortable with that word, so I just use rainbow. Whether that's your priority or whether healthcare is your they all essentially overlap. If you really sat down and thought about it, you'd be like,
everything overlaps.
Everything overlaps. So on that point, there's a form that, again, because I have so many projects in my head, but this conversation amongst the third, it has to take place. Or you can set it up like a primary. Like everybody want to run for president.
Yeah, do that.
You have a debate. We all go to our polls because they don't let third parties have ballot access. So we all go to the polls. You give us a Google form, and whoever we vote for, that's it. That's what we support.
Nothing can stop you from doing that.
But I had to spill some tea before you go, Tracy, because I know
nobody's in my room yet. Keep going.
I know there's already because I know you got a show to do, but I just want to say this. I've never said this on the show. Like, I have to expose some things, because this experience going into the YouTube media world, I didn't think that this was going to be a part of my journey, because I have a PhD and I'm currently technically unemployed as a doctor. And some of that's by choice, because I don't want to be confined to a certain system. I've already gotten that from academia already.
Mm-hmm. And they'll put a muzzle on you.
And yeah, exactly. And so you have the affiliation. It's almost like being a part of the political parties. I think a lot of what we're saying is the problem with political parties, the political process, because when you cast a vote for a person, you're not just voting for the person, you're voting for their party. That's why the letter's next to their name. And as far as just this process is concerned, I don't think that I think that Cornel West to some extent has a serious campaign. And I think that Jill Stein does too. But I think you could argue in other ways that they're not serious campaigns. And I say that because Jill Stein and Cornel West have definitely fulfilled certain qualifications as far as getting their name out there. They have name recognition. They don't reject invitations to shows, or at least on my end, just using my show as an example, a small forum like mine, to get correspondence to me says a lot when you have people corresponding. And I know initially with Dr. West, it was very, very difficult to get in touch with him. And it shouldn't have been that difficult to get in touch with him. But ultimately, that was able to be fulfilled. I was able to interview him twice. Jill Stein, I was able to interview. I was able to interview her campaign director, who Tracy's also interviewed before, Jason Call. And the Green Party has shown accessibility and willingness to come on to smaller shows. The PSL, I'm going to throw them under the bus, because the PSL,
never heard of them.
Claudia de la Cruz's campaign, I called her office 10 different times. I've sent probably 10 different emails, and there's absolutely no reason not to get any response from that. The fact that I got responses from Trump's campaign, RFK's campaign, and bigger campaigns, frankly, than Claudia de la Cruz's campaign, that tells a lot to me. That sends a huge signal to me. And so we can complain all we want about media access and stuff, but when you're not, and Chase Oliver, he did come on my show, but when I tried to follow up with Chase Oliver's campaign, he said that he was not going to do podcasts, but he went on John Stossel's show, who's a bigger platform, but he wouldn't come back onto this particular platform, which I think is confusing. Because to me, when you're smaller, you need to be on any platform you can.
Absolutely.
You can really pick and choose. And so I see a lot of these things, and it makes me question, are there other motives involved that I'm not being aware of?
There's Kiko.
It ain't about us.
Tiz just said it. Our platforms aren't big enough. It's unfortunate that some candidates think of it like that, and I'm thinking in terms of the candidate. They're trying to be seen, which, like, why it surprised me that Dr. West even came on my platform, because I don't even have 300 subscribers. So I was shocked. I was like, really?
Because your title, great title if you're trying to bring him in.
Some other people have had shows dedicated to candidates, and the candidate has never appeared on their show. There's a whole podcast dedicated to Andrew Yang, and he never once appeared.
See, that's a great point. So I'm gonna say this and then go to my real point. This is my frustration, or my reason why I don't even take third parties seriously, because I look at the people at the top of the ticket, and I can say you're either dead silent, completely absent, or inconsistent when it's not within a year or 2 years of the election. You're not working all the time, which means you're not working for me. You're working for you. This is an ego project. This is something that you just want to do. You feel like you should do it. And then you're coming out of obscurity, relative obscurity, into saying you want the top job. You want the top job. Knowing that you do not have any leverage to employ once you get there. So you will have the benefit of being Madam President or Mr. President. But you still can't do the work for me. So you knew that going in. So that means it wasn't about me. It was about you. You just want me to help you do you, right? So that's my biggest frustration with the third parties, because if third parties were serious, they would actually do more work building, which I think the Green Party is trying to do.
If you don't mind me asking, have you ever supported an independent or third party?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I'm a pragmatic voter. So that's my reason why. I'm not voting to win. It's not like I'm voting. I want the guy who's going to win. No, it's not. And there are people who vote that way, right? Whoever looks like they're going to win, I'm gonna vote for him, because that way I can say I chose a winner. No, but there are voters like that. That's fine. At least they're in the game. Then there are people who will say, well, I'm red team because my family's red team and I've always been red team, and that's what I'm gonna do. There's people like that. Then there's, my favorite celebrity supports this, so it must be okay. So I'll do that. And then there's, whatever, it doesn't really matter anyway. So I'll just go in there and vote eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Just catch a tiger by its toe all the way down the thing, And there's those. My thing is, at least they're all engaged, and because they're engaged, they have the opportunity to grow or move. But what you're not going to get from me is say that everybody that doesn't vote is wrong. That's not my position. My position is, though, if you don't vote, what are you doing? See what I'm saying? And people hate when I do that to them, because it makes you look at yourself. Mm-hmm. See, it's all good to be in opposition to things. Tracy knows I can't stand people who are just oppositional to be oppositional. I don't like it. It triggers me almost every time. I need to work on that, but I ain't got there yet. But look, it's easy to be against, hard to be for. Because when you're against, you don't have to have any background. You can just say, nope, don't like that. Nope, don't like that. All right. But when you're for, now you got to defend things. You got to elaborate on things. You got to justify things. People attack you. You got to fight back. Right. So that's harder for people to do.
I don't agree with. I think that non-voters are. I don't think that that's a fair criticism in the sense
I haven't finished my point on non-voters.
Okay.
So non-voters, sometimes they're just anti. Sometimes they're exhausted. Yeah. They're exhausted of watching people play in their face. Right. So
Playing in
that's
their
one.
face.
That's another. But I still will come back to you, and I'll say, what are you doing? Okay. So, like, I had a friend that I worked with. He was very much like, I never vote. I don't vote. I ain't playing with this old rigged system. He's a brother, right? We're both very, very pro-black, right? And so I was like, yeah, it's cool. But what else are you doing? He's like, well, I work with the youth and I help them with, you know, their education and understanding who they are and knowing their history and things like that. And I said, that's why it's okay that you don't vote, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are doing something to serve your community. You are actively doing something. My problem for non-voters who are not actively doing something is that is lazy, because it takes no real effort to go vote. Okay,
It really
if
does.
nothing else, you can vote in a defensive posture. All right, like when I'm voting for Kamala this round, I am voting mainly out of a defensive posture. I'm voting to not have the guy who will make it harder for the interests that I care about to continue to organize and gel and get stronger, right? It's really hard to organize when you have someone who says, I will jail my political opponents, and has shown you in the past that he will send unidentified federal agents into protests and round people up. He's done it. So it's not a huge gap to think that he'll do it again. Now, the Democratic Party, they ain't saying they're going to listen to you. We know they don't really listen to nobody. If you ain't got no money, they ain't listening, right? So that's cool. I need time to build small businesses. I need time to get the people who still believe in the church and want to be active in the church to go back to church. I need time to get children to focus on, hey, education isn't just something you have to do. It's something that you can do to serve. It's something that can serve you and serve others. And what do you want to be? How do you want to grow? Let's get you ready for adulting. Let's do it. These are the things I actually do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can't do a very good job of that in a state where everyone is terrified to go out the door. And during the last part of Trump's administration, not just because of COVID, you can't deny that the level of stress and fear and trepidation that was in the Black community, the gay community, and the peoples with disability community, it was sky high. Sky high. Because the guy at the top was attacking them.
I say the gay community. I can't speak the Black communities I were in. That wasn't the case, but
yeah. Here's where can I ask these a question?
Ones I talked to, we definitely been on.
Yeah, I think I don't disagree with anything you've said, but here comes my point. And some people say this is false. Some people say, oh, you're just. How is it that Trump is gaining? Wait a minute. Let me make this point. How screwed up is the Democratic Party not to be walking this off? They should be beating Trump by at least 10 to 15 points.
Okay, why aren't they?
At least. I don't know. I'm just like, this party to me, this is what really frustrates me. People say, why did you like the Democrat Party? One, I've seen you use Black people like we're last thought instead of a priority because we literally technically vote for you more than any other community. Like, we need to be the priority.
Nope.
If you
we need to be a priority to ourselves. We'll never be the priority to them. Our numbers ain't there.
Well, okay, I agree with that. But if 80 to 90% of any group is voting for you, you probably want to pay attention to that community. Probably.
Not if they keep giving you the support.
So, but see, this is the thing, and that's the thing.
That's where I'm
that is a common frustration. The Democratic Party takes the Black vote for granted. They just say, hey, 95% of the Black vote is coming to us no matter what we do. No matter worse, we might lose 8 to 12%. So we freak out if it crosses over 8%, and then we'll start talking to them a little bit. So I'm with you. Here's the point.
Okay.
It's called leverage. It's all about leverage. We are roughly 13% of the population. We're 13 to 15, depends on how you count. And we are fractured in and of ourselves.
Yeah, we're not a monolith.
Well, see, we need to be.
No, I don't.
No, hear me out. Because no, I'm not talking about the simple term of monolith. I'm saying a threat against one should be a threat against all. We don't all have to agree about the fine points. We don't. But if we're saying we want more political power, there's a way that you use political power. I'm going to use our brothers and sisters of the Jewish community as an example because I think they're a wonderful example. They are able to function however they function. But if you create a threat against their shared identity, or you start to invoke trauma from their past, they come together and monolithically extract points of pain. Okay? They use where they have it. If it's in the financial sector, they'll use that. If it's in the entertainment sector, they'll use that. If it's in wherever they need, but they use their leverage to say, hey, we're only 8% of the population, but you better pay attention to us because we will do this, and we'll do this, and we'll do that. The Black community is not cohesive. So we actually recoil when someone says that we're monolithic, even though if I gave you a Black church saying, most of us will recognize it, even if we don't actively go. If I turned on Frankie Beverly and Maze, even if you don't know the line dance, you'll be like this because there's a certain level of respect and homage and comfort within our community, right? We eat some of the same foods, even if some of us have distanced ourselves from the more unhealthy foods, it still is that part of our culture. We acknowledge it as part of our culture. R&B and rap music and gospel music of the form that we consume, that is very much a Black thing. There's no shame in having culture. And what culture is monolithic. Now, as an individual, you are not. As an individual, you are varied, you have layers, you have all of these things. But to say that you're not monolithic puts you at a disadvantage to all the other monolithic groups, because monolithic in the term of politics is moving based on your shared interests. And right now, we as a big we don't like being grouped together. Because what we have seen throughout our history is if you're two grouped together, you all get punished together. So we've learned to kind of spread that out. We might live by each other, but we don't know each other. We might go to school with each other, but we don't really want to hang out with each other.
But
right?
that
we
wasn't the point I was trying to make.
It is the point. But
no,
I mean, not your point. But it is the point. Not your point, but I'm saying it is the point as far as how 95% of us tend to vote for the Democrats without extracting any demands for getting our vote.
Extract them. But here's my ultimate question was, how can Trump, with all the racism he exudes,
very easy question, go ahead,
gaining in the those two things don't even seem to go together.
Here's how they work together.
Because that makes no sense to me. This man literally said of the
Haitian immigrants
that they eat dogs.
Yes.
And cats.
Yes.
You didn't see this is my ultimate point. This is how bad the Democratic Party is.
No.
Oh, yes. Because
I think you're drawing the wrong conclusion.
Because if the Democratic Party was doing right by the people that support them, just almost to a point where I'm just like scratching my head, like, why y'all voting for them? But, vote the way you want to vote. Without any demands, because we don't make demands. I agree with you. We need to start making demands. We don't make demands.
Good organization before you make a demand.
True. But we don't make demands, but we're still most likely Kamala.
Absolutely.
Is going to get about 70 to 75%.
She's going to get more like 90, 95%.
No, she's not going to get that high of a percent.
She's not going to get that high. She's not going to get that high. I don't.
And the people who, okay, so to talk to some of what you were talking about, I've hit this a few times as we were talking about priorities. It was when I was basically talking about the third parties, about how you have different priorities. This is why the Democratic Party can't make inroads with Republicans. The priority is different, right? To be a Republican does not mean that you're racist.
No.
It means, well, let me finish. It doesn't mean that you're a racist. It means that racism is not a deal breaker. Okay? So for your typical decent, normal Republican voter, they don't view themselves as racists.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they oppose racism, but they're operating from a definition of racism that is very narrow and very watered down. So they say, as long as you're not using the word, and as long as you ain't stringing people up from trees, then really that ain't racism. That's just, sometimes life is harder for some people than other people. So for them, racism might be number 5, right? But there's 4 really other important things to them. So Trump being racist is offensive to a lot of them. But he's hitting the notes on at least 2 of those higher priority
You just
things.
got to the point I was getting to, because what he's doing is he's saying, look how bad the economy is.
When it's not.
Harrison Trump. I'm not saying it is or isn't, but he's making that point, and he's winning. If you look at the polling, he's winning on the economy. If you look at the economy under his administration, it was terrible.
But that's part of what I'm trying to get at, Tracy. It's like you were saying, the mechanism and everything that's happening on the Republican side is a reflection of Democrats, when it's really not. America is much more locked than we give it credit for. All right, and in a way, it kind of always has been. So
I'm still trying to figure out how you think Kamala's gonna get 90%. I'm like, she gonna do good if she gets 70. If she gets 70,
hey, first of all, I'm not here to represent the Kamala Waltz Party ticket. But what I'm saying to you is, the Black vote, through its history, just looking at its history, is a very pragmatic voting group. We vote for the lesser of the 2 evils because we have always had to confront evil. So we do not have the luxury at any part of our history of voting for an angel. Never had one, ain't ever had one. So we look at it and we say, who will do the least harm and create an environment, or at least maintain an environment, that my children have a better chance to succeed in than the alternative, right? Not what I want in the big scope of things, but what can I wrestle out of right now, right? So I'm bringing it just to me. So here's part of my math on why I can't entertain the Republican Party and why I can't entertain any of the third parties. Third parties, my reason with third parties, you don't have a governing mission. If you get the office, you don't have Congress. You don't have Congress, nothing moves. So it doesn't matter. Congratulations, you still can't do nothing for me, even if you want to. Then we look at the Republican Party. Well, the Republican Party wants to get rid of the social safety net. What does that mean to me? I am securely middle class, right? I'm not in danger of being broke tomorrow unless something happens with my job. And then I have the skill set that I probably can go get another one, or I'll start a business like I did last time and have the money moving again within 90 days. That is me. But the reason why what the Republicans are projecting about the removing the social safety net matters to me is because all my family ain't like me. So I have family members with chronic illnesses, diabetes, fibromyalgia, scleroderma. Some have had to battle cancer, lupus, right? All this is in my family. So if you take away their ability to have access to the care that they currently have access to, who do you think they got to come to? They got to come to me. And I ain't got it. So it behooves me to try to keep as much of what they need in place. They get rid of Section 8. What happens to my poor brothers and sisters and cousins and everybody out there who ain't even really related to me, but that's what I call them, because they're part of my family. They're part of the larger Black family, right? What happens till you get rid of Section 8, which Trump wants to get rid of? How are they going to afford rent? People can't afford rent at $11, $12, $13, $1,500 now.
Sure can.
Paying $30 a month for rent, that's a godsend for someone who doesn't have a lot of options. And you take that away from them, now what? The Affordable Care Act, take that out. Now they don't have access to these private plans. They have to rely on Medicaid if they can get it, because Republican states manage Medicaid and they don't like it. So they'll get rid of that too. So now how do we get chronic care for our elders and our children and things like that? That's important to me. Look at something economic. Jobs, right? Right now, there's a heavy attack on DEI and whatever the flavor of the month term of affirmative action is.
Yep.
Okay. Affirmative action, there's always been affirmative action. It's just for the longest time, affirmative action was for white people. So now we have affirmative action that makes it so that someone who lost their leg in an accident, someone who has some form of comprehensive disability can still get a job. These people can get jobs because of DEI, because of affirmative action, because of the inclusive workplace things that the Republicans have promised is on their list of things to chop and get rid of. And the corporations, their motivation is money. And they've already signaled to everyone, because you've seen a lot of them start pulling back on their DEI program. That is a signal to you, letting you know that the moment it becomes socially permissive, they will get rid of their least profitable cogs in the machine.
Yeah,
without a second thought. So I'm voting for the Democrats in a defensive posture. Then we look at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is very important to me. Do I wish Joe Biden would have gone in and done my reform for the Supreme Court? I'm not going to waste y'all time with it right now, but it's because it's too lengthy. But yeah, it'd been great if he did that. He didn't do it. But so what we do, we get stuck with the same garbage system we got. But in the least point, two of these jokers are going to age out. They're just not going, you know what I'm saying? Even if they try to hold on, two of them going to go soon. Okay. If you get a Democrat in office, at least you can rebalance that court a little bit. And now I don't have to fear for my daughters, because I'm a father of 3 daughters, 5 if you add them all together, because I have my bonus babies, all girls. And the fact that my girls, even being black, you got less actual rights, enforceable rights than many of your counterparts. But now you got less legal rights if you're a woman, right? Double whammy. That doesn't sit well with me. So anything that will help get another Supreme Court justice in there to make it so that they can get the lawsuits back down the pipeline and get a better version of Roe Wade back in there, I'm for that. So anytime someone comes to me and they're saying, no, you should do this, or you should stand on your principles and do that, I say principles are wonderful. I live by principles every day of my life. But when I'm voting pragmatically. I'm voting for the people that I care about. I'm voting for people who don't have the power that I have. I'm voting for the people who are more vulnerable. And I'm just saying they matter to me. I'm not saying they don't matter to other people, but they matter to me. So when you ask, why do I vote for the Democratic Party, even though I'm not I don't really care for the Democrats.
But you are a Democrat, though.
Yeah, I would say you were a Democrat because
I am. But it's like, yeah. I am a Democrat because if you look at my party registration, that's what it says.
No, because you've only supported Democrats. I mean, so you are a Democrat.
That's fine too, right? That's fine.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
yeah, whatever label someone wants to put on me is cool because I know what my motivations are, right? And my motivations place me.
Your motivations are.
I'm sorry.
You're just explaining what your motivations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because there's people do things for a variety of reasons. And it's layered and it's multifaceted. Yeah. So that's why I don't really like when people say that voting for a third party is stupid. No, I just challenge your reasoning for doing it. And when I challenge you and you can't give me much more than a slogan or a dream, that part is stupid, right? What you're doing isn't stupid. I'm saying put some more thought into what you're doing so that you can stand on why you're doing it. It doesn't matter what I believe about it. That's your choice, right? If you're a non-voter, hey, you're not voting. You're not playing in the Mickey Mouse system. Cool. But are you doing something else? If you're doing something else, then I will clap and I'll probably find a way to support you. But if you're not doing anything else, you're just saying about how bad the system is, then you're telling me you're not even going to do that little bit. You're not even going to do that little bit to protect vulnerable people from a clear and present threat. I'm not sitting here doing this thing that, and Tracy, you've thrown it at me in the past, other people have thrown it in the past. They're like, oh, you're just using fear and fear. Yes, I need you to be afraid. I need you to be afraid of what can happen to people you say you care about. I need you to be afraid for that little, and I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional here. I need you to be afraid for that little girl who is an American citizen, but her parents are from El Salvador and Mexico, and they come and knock on their door and pull their parents out and take them away. And that little girl gets sent off to our broken orphanage system. Okay, right? I need you to care. I need you to be worried about the guy who speaks with a Spanish accent because at home all they do is speak Spanish, but he's 100% an American citizen. But when they come and look for him, they're going to ask one question: show me your papers. And I don't want to have anybody in America having to walk the streets carrying their papers because of their accent. I don't want that. And that is exactly what we're being promised, because it's the only way you can do it. It's the only way you can do a mass roundup. And if you know your history, you will look back at the 1930s Germany. Yes, I'm going there. And how did they make the Jewish people identify themselves? They wore their papers around their neck, because if you couldn't prove who you were, then you had to be what we said you are. So I'm just saying to people, it doesn't have to get as bad as Nazi Germany. It doesn't have to get that bad. But just the parts that I just laid out to you are not dreams. They're promises that have been made. In fact, it's a major part of his platform. And then people say, well, don't take him seriously. He's just talking. He's just saying things. The guy running for president, you're telling me not to listen to what he's saying.
Yeah, it's like you running for the highest office in land. Like, I have to take you.
That's just rhetoric. It ain't just rhetoric. This the dude who's trying to be the boss.
I'm going to agree with this, because overall, I get where you're going. So I will explain why the Democrat, but it ain't happening.
I respect that.
No, I'm gonna tell you. Here's how I lay it out for you. Because if you've been on my Facebook page, and y'all have, you know, genocide is like it's my red line. I ain't crossing it. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you do. People use it. Well, Trump will make it worse.
Yes.
That I'm gonna tell you why that doesn't work with me. Gaza is gone. Cool. Gaza is completely under rubble.
Yep.
And
now they're attacking 2 more countries. Yep.
Yes, because the simple sentence, the one sentence that you could utter and say no more. The president didn't do that. If the president vetoes a bill, obviously Congress is going to override the veto. Let me finish. They're going to veto it because they basically are in AIPAC's pocket.
And some of them agree. Like Biden is a Zionist. It's okay.
Yeah, Biden called himself a Zionist. Since he's the current president, I'm glad you went. He called himself a Zionist. A policy, if I understand it right, has roots in racism. I mean, dude, just go ahead and just say
it's less about racism and more about we call it more like white supremacy, but for
nationalism.
Like
it's nationalism. It's all of those things, right? I'm like, just say you for apartheid. Just say, I mean.
But he's not.
No, but I'm saying if you're saying you're for Zionism, to me, you might as well just say I'm for apartheid, because to me they're very similar.
I get it.
They're similar.
From where we sit. Yeah.
When I hear that, and I know it takes one sentence, one literal sentence.
No, it doesn't.
No, this is me expressing my opinion. Why I can't with this is the main. Well, no, there's several reasons. That's one. There's so many barriers that the Democratic Party would have to cross for me to say, you know what, I'm gonna vote for that Democrat.
But that's why you're not gonna hear me say to you, Tracy, you should vote for the Democratic Party because of this, that, and the third.
Oh no,
I'm talking. Other people have, but it hurt. Other people have, but it's based on where they're coming from. It's kind of like when you call people dumb for voting for Democrats, which you've done a few times, right? They're coming from a different position. They're passionate about what they're passionate about and blah, 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 blah. But if the president, just to take this one piece, because everybody brings up the genocide thing, which is major, because anytime people are dying, it upsets me.
Yeah, they're dying for literally because
war
Benjamin
upsets me, because war are powerful people using other
people
people to fight out their grievances. But if the American president came out and said, whether it's Kamala, Donald, or Biden,
which none of them would do that, but continue.
They wouldn't, but I'm just saying, if they came out and said, no more arms deals, no more security defense, no more, until you stop these offensive actions. And if you promise to stop your offensive actions, then we will help defend your border until such time as you can do what you need to do, so that they can have their peace and you can have your peace. Like, that'd be so nice if we would say something like that, right? That would never happen. And the reason why is because you would immediately be punished, right? You'd be punished by your voters. You'd be punished by operators within. And then the next thing is, like, how do you enforce it? How do you enforce it? You say that. You put that deal out, and I actually put more of a deal out there than I would imagine they would do. Their thing would just be
because you gave them a whole
right? Because I said we'll go
and
help defend things, right? Which we have no business doing. We really should go to the people in the area and have them come and do it, not us. But everybody looks at us because we're the big boys. Cool. What happens when Israel says no?
They don't get the money.
Okay. So they don't get the money.
They're not gonna. It's not like they're gonna attack us. They wait. One, they way over there.
No, they won't fight us. They won't fight us. That's not the point. They don't get the money from us. You think it stops there? If I can't get the money from the Americans, I will get the money from China. I will get the money from whomever. No. I'm just talking real world application and what it is that we ultimately want to achieve. If what we ultimately want to achieve is not a ceasefire, what we really want is stop the dead blasted war. Okay? Done. Stop it. And then let's the world come in and help pay for Gaza to be rebuilt. Not just another excuse for Israel to expand its
rebuilt so it can be destroyed again because of the same military complex.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what we want, but I'm saying is we got to look at what we want and then build out from there, right? So if we want an actual cessation of the violence and the war, and we want the Palestinians to come back to what's left of their land and be able to be rebuilt, things like that. One, who's going to pay for that rebuilding? If we don't want to pay for weapons, you think we really going to go pay for rebuilding a country we didn't blow up? No. So they ain't got no money. Palestinians are going to have to turn to somebody to get money. Where they going to turn? Can't turn to Israel because Israel actually wants to take more of your land, right? This is, in my view, Israel is part of what they're doing is not just the ethnic cleansing. It's part of their Zionistic expansion criteria. They want more land.
Yeah, they want
their
more
people
land.
Are crowded. They want more land. Mm-hmm. So they want to expand. And the best way to do that is to take the land next to you. And the best way to do that is to claim that you have some divine right to it. And
it's
then
an ideological thing is very dangerous.
Right. It's just using it as a weapon. It's not even real. Right. But the fight is against Zionism. The fight is not against Judaism. Judaism is not the problem. Zionism is the problem. Right. But they've wed the two together.
Yeah,
so if you attack Zionism, you are attacking Judaism. And that has actually been a stated position from the U.S. government and the Israeli government.
Of course, because they work together.
Congress. Yeah,
I get it, but I'm not trying to get into the weeds. But I'm bringing these points out because it all feeds into if you say what you want, then sometimes the way you have to get there is you have to make some decisions you don't want to make. You got to make some dirty games being played because the world is an evil, dark place. So if you don't want Israel to turn against America in the manner of going to some of our other opponents to get money, then that means you got to keep giving them money. Even though you don't want to give them money, got to give them money. Because why? Oh, backing up a little bit, one of the reasons, and I think this will help, America doesn't truly support Israel because of the Jewish community. That's not.
No. Everybody knows that.
when everybody doesn't know that. A lot of people think that the reason why America supports Israel is because of there's the Christian angle, you know, like you got to have somewhere for all the Jews to go. And then once they all get there, and then Jesus can come back, right? You got those who believe that on the evangelical side of the bundle. And then you got some who just believe this because, hey, that's like a semi-white nation in the midst of a bunch of brown people. So America is trying to support them there. No. Coming out of World War II, the nations came together and had to figure out what they were going to do.
Yeah.
America decided, because they had already shown their hand, they don't want the Jewish people here.
Yeah, so we said send them there.
So they got with the other Western powers and they said, you know what, mainly Britain, and said, what can we do? Well, the Jewish people are saying that they should get to go back to their homeland of more than 2,000 years ago. Okay, nobody else gets to lay this claim. All right, the Native Americans can't go to America and say we deserve our land from 300 years ago. Can't do that. But for this, it worked because it was a convenient thing. We're going to move them out there. But here's the thing: we're going to move you out there, but you have to always be a convenient landing place, a staging place for our forward operations. Israel serves a strategic purpose. We can get our planes in there. We can get our troops in there. It's a safe place to piggyback in and then get to wherever else you need to go. It's the reason we do it with Guam. It's the reason we do it with Hawaii. It's strategic. So when you look at that, what do the Palestinians offer to America? They can't offer any of that.
No, because they're displaced.
Exactly. So that's why America always chooses Israel over Palestine. It's not an ideological thing. We use it because it's easier for the masses to absorb that, right? But the reality is it's a geopolitical, economic power thing.
And it is ideological too. It is.
But they use it. They use the ideological thing.
Hey, y'all.
We took your whole show
43 minutes ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, we need to wrap this up too because I got to go some places. I'm getting phone calls like left and right. But I want to give you all a chance to like if a viewer had a question or a comment.
It's always my fault.
If a viewer had a question or a comment like directly towards you, like what would be the quickest way for them to get in touch with you, Tracy, and you too, Theus?
Always go to my email, TracyMediaLLC@gmail.com. I know how to block people, so I don't care about giving out my email. TracyMediaLLC, because blocking you blesses me. See, people don't understand that about me. I try to live like I know the Lord, but sometimes I don't get to where I need to get, but I'm trying. He know my heart. But it's TracyMediaLLC@gmail.com, or you can hop over and join me on my podcast, which I'm about to go to. Congratulations to Dr. Cornel West, 47th President of the United States, because I got a major announcement. Major.
And I will link your YouTube channel and your website.
Yes, because I'm trying to get to 300 and I'm stuck at 282. I don't think I'm going to make it to 300 before the end of the month, but we'll see.
But I'm going to promote, I always promote Empathic Times, Tracy Carson's channel. I'm going to promote Radical Truth to Power, Our United Core, Complex Mind, Simple Man. Like I always do that for the guests, and I've done it on several different programs and stuff, and I continue to do it. But I don't know what goes into that, but it's a struggle for independent outlets to get those numbers and to keep those numbers. It's always a struggle, and we have a lot that we have to deal with, and hopefully this little bit of a contribution helps with that. But Tracy, it was nice having you on the show tonight. And Theus, like we'll probably have to wrap it up too because I definitely have to go within 15 minutes.
Hey, but you would ask how to reach me. I'll tell you right now, man, it's gonna be hard to reach me. Best way to catch me.
They'll beat you one podcast.
Hey, it is what it is, man.
Every time
you want to catch me, check out Radical Truth to Power on YouTube. that's where you will find me on the weekends. Marlon's really good about responding to questions and comments, and we'll find a way to try to work you into the show if we can. But me, as far as like hitting me up, you send me an email, I probably ain't gonna read it because that's not how I'm moving right now. I'm busy trying to build our United Core. Our United Core is not a political endeavor. I'm not going to sit there and debate with you about parties. I'm not going to debate with you about Black social issues. I'm not doing anything. What we do on our United Core is we focus on helping people. My whole thing is I want to help people see that you're not in this world alone. We're all in this together, and that we can do small things to help each other. So if you come to our United Core, what I ask for you to do is read up on the website, see if it's something that you're interested in. Please become a donor and a supporter, because we take that money and we go and do things. I pay for haircuts for random people. I'll stop and just give somebody a $10 gift card to Subway. I'll go and I'll pay for somebody's gas just because I'm over there buying gas for myself. I see a young man, one day it was a young man, he was just hungry. He's like, sir, can you just give me $2 so I can get something to drink? And I said, you know what, let's get you something to eat, right? This is what we do with our United Core. So if you about that life, I invite you to please come and help us out. But if you want to do political dialogue, Radical Truth to Power. That's where you're gonna get me.
Well, we like the mesh and match of all of it. Now our United Core, is that a 501c3?
Not yet. So right now it's just me trying to do the best I can. Right. So, well, I mean, I have some supporters, and thank each and every one of you out there who helped support me. But this year was all about proof of concept. It's wonderful to ask that question, and I'm not trying to take your time.
No. Keep going.
Yeah. So basically, the idealism inside of me, because a little background. Me, Theus Robinson, one of the things that I used to do, did it for about 2, maybe 3 years. I would raise money with my friends, and then I would go out and I would go to the school and I would pay for anybody's outstanding lunch bill, just to clear the books. Because in some of our schools, if you owe money on your library and your school lunch fees, it delays you getting your report card. So we would just go out, I would raise the money and I go to school and I would pay for it. Then the school board said to me, hey, you can't do that because you need to be part of a 501c3, so that we know where the money's coming from and things like that. Even though it's like $200-$300 is what we were doing, right? So that stopped after 3 years of doing that. And for those who wonder why I stopped, it's because there's a lot of carrying costs to having a corporation. So then, all right, I stopped that. And then we started doing a school clinic. So once again, raising money. At that point, we were doing it through Complex Mind, Simple Man. And we would raise money, and then we would help stock the clinic. So we bought shirts and shorts and underclothes and T-shirts and I'm sorry to say that, and gauze and cotton balls and paper towels, right? Whatever the school needed, we did that for 3 years. And the reason why that even came to being is because, I was sitting there with my wife, and we had, at that time, my girls were much younger. And it hit me one day, what I'm saying? It's like when a kid goes to school, and I'm sorry if I get emotional because this is really important to me. When kids go to school and they don't have money for lunch, they get like a sack lunch. Okay. Now, some would say that's good because that means the kid gets to eat. But it's also a badge. It's a flashing sign. When you get your sack lunch and walk back to the table, I know why you did that. Even as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, I know why you ain't got no money. Right? And that hurts me. Like I don't think a child should ever feel that part of life. Then you can say, well, they can get free lunch. Free lunch ain't free, y'all.
I know.
That's tax money. And what do we all want to do? Cut taxes. So that gets hard, especially if you're not at a Title I school where everybody can get fed. You're at a school that's not broke, then, sorry if you are, So, yeah, I just wanted to put a little dent in that. So that's where the school lunch thing came in. And because at that time I was dealing with the schools, I started to see more things. And then I was like, you know, if a kid has an accident in school, mainly this is going to be your kindergartner and your first grader, maybe even your second grader. They have an accident in school. They pee on themselves. They are playing and they fall down and they cut themselves, or they fall in the mud or something like that. Where these clothes come from? Most people haven't thought about this. So the kid goes to the clinic, they get cleaned up, and the clinic has to rely on lost and found to put clothes on this child. Now, how are you going to feel when your child comes home from school? Your beautiful baby boy, your darling little girl comes home from school and they in clothes that you didn't send them to school in. And when you get ready to change them, they ain't got no underwear on. They don't have any underwear on because who got underwear to put on your child? They can't put used underwear on you, right? Mm-hmm. So that was when we started, okay, well, I'll buy, you know, when we were doing $400 or $500 worth of stuff. And we would go and we would deliver the actual stuff. And we did that for like 3 years. We stopped doing that last year. Mainly for a good reason. It's a really good reason. I'm so proud to report. So the school that we have been giving supplies to, they never knew they had this need. They never knew that they could get this kind of support. And because of what we were doing through Complex Mind, they started reaching out to other companies. And they were able to get like a $10,000 support package. So my little $500, don't need that no more. We are outmoded. But it's a beautiful thing because now they know how to get what they need, and there's going to be even more children
they came from your dream and your
right. So, and this is all built on the concept of just regular people saying, you know what? I don't need a tax benefit. I don't need all that. It's $10. I'll give you $5. I'll give you $10. I'll give you $100. To do what you're doing because I believe in what you're doing. And so that fed in me. It's like, okay, there's energy here. We can capitalize on that. And so that's when our United Core came in to being. This is our first year. And we're not doing the school clinic because like what I just said, but we don't really have much money. So it's mainly my money. But it's an LLC, so there's carrying costs and things like that. So we're focused on, we've been doing the haircuts and we've been doing the gift cards and we've been doing little random acts of kindness, mainly get our name out there. And also for those few people we come across or I come across, just letting them know you're not in this alone, right? I got no reason to do anything for any of these people. I had no reason. Ain't nothing on me to say I got to do any of this. I could just focus on my family, you know, but I can't, you know. Long answer to the short question of the 501c3, but next year, my goal is to get the 501c3 in place. Fortunately or unfortunately, I've seen that, you know, my model of, you know, people giving small donations to do bigger things, it's just not going to work because people always say that they love the idea. They love what we're doing. They love all of this about it, but they don't want to get no money.
Right.
So, you know, I can't keep using my paycheck, you know, to do that because my paycheck don't run that long. You know, right. I got 3 girls that I take care of. One's a grown up, so I don't have to take care of her that much. But you know, once your baby, always your baby. So we're gonna go the nonprofit route, and I hope to continue doing what I call continuous giving. It may take another form. It might just be the gift cards because it's easy, or it might be something else. But the nonprofit will be focused on mainly 2 things, and I'm not going to go into because I've already monopolized a lot of your time. But one is it's all about education and community development. So teaching young people who are coming into adulthood about what are the things that's going to take to be an adult, or even people who are already in adulthood. So making math less scary, showing how the math that you learned in school, here's the way you actually will use it, right? Here's how we use math when we're driving. Here's how we use math when we go shopping. Here's how we do math when it comes to paying our bills and budgeting and forecasting and saving and investing, and How do you start a checking account? How do you structure a savings account? How do you build realistic mentalities about how these things actually work? Because unfortunately, we go into the world and we're just told to figure it out somehow. How do you start a business account? How do you do it? Right? There are people who can do this far better than me, but why not me? Right? So, so that's one part. That'll be the digital footprint. But as much as I love talking, I hate recording. So I never get out there and put my content out. I just don't. That's why Tracy and Marlon were picking on me, because it's legit. But then also on the nonprofit side as well, what we do in person, I want a youth center where we will be able to have the youth center, have after school care, that, you know, people who have a membership to the youth center, now you pretty much are getting daycare because you're a member of the youth center, right? That's how it was when I was a kid. You know, you had a $400, $300 a week, you know, cost. You have $50 a week cost because you were a member of the center, right? And now when you get out of school, here's where you go, you know,
right?
You know. So I want to do that, but to do that, I need money, and I can't get it from individuals, because let's just be real, we all have chaotic lives. We're all managing our bubbles of chaos, and we ain't got that kind of money to move around. So I'm go where the money is. Hey, Mr. Government, I need some money. Hey, corporate America, I need some money, right? Like, I know people are saying, no, the government's evil and corporate is evil, and don't take corporate money and don't take government money. And I'm like, but that's where the money is. Right. And I get people who are really strong on their principles. I used to be. That's why it's taken me so long to get where I am right now, because I'm very stubborn and I'm very, very dug in on my principles. But my principles ain't feeding nobody. And I want to feed people. I want to be able to hire that brother who just got out of jail. He just did 5 years. Because he made a decision when he was 19 or 22 years old, and nobody else would give him a job. Well, if I look at other communities, right, they bring their children home and they put them to work. We don't own any businesses, so we don't do that. So I want to be able to bring these brothers and sisters home and give them a job and be like, you know what, you are not the worst thing you've ever done. So let's go ahead and build from here if you're ready to do that. I want to take people in communities that ain't got no real money, right? Which is where a lot of our communities are. Well, you know, you're talking about 70, 80% unemployment. And I'll be like, no, you come work for me, doing the things that you already consume, right? We have a lot of CNAs in our community, but they go out there and they get ripped off by these staffing agencies getting paid $10, $11, $12 an hour. No, come work for me. I'm gonna pay you, you know, whatever, $20 or whatever it is, right? You get the lion's share of the contract, because all I'm doing is lining up the contract. This ain't about me getting rich, right? But we're gonna help you develop in your career path. You want to go from being a CNA to being an EMT? I'm gonna help you with that. You want to go from being a CNA to being an LPN? I'm gonna help you with that. You want to be a firefighter? All right, let's walk you through that. You go from CNA to EMT to paramedic, and next thing you know, here you are, a firefighter, right? These are things we can do. It's all into the education. It's all about caring about each other and all that good stuff. And I'm sorry I whacked so long, but that's what it is, bro.
No, I wanted you to talk about our United Core. That's the reason why I wanted you to stay on a little bit longer. But I wish we could have definitely delved into things a little bit more. I think we did. It's going to be interesting to play this back and listen to it, because we covered a lot of stuff. We really did.
Yeah, I talked too much.
We covered a lot of. No, I liked when we were talking about the protesting, and some of the ideas are really interesting with you and Marlon, and then Tracy came on. We kind of went more electoral politics route, but no, we would definitely have to have another discussion down the road, and we'll just organize it whenever. I'm just so happy today that we're able to make this happen, so my audience knows who you are, They already knew who Tracy was, and they know who Marlon is now. And I'm excited for the next conversation with us, the four of us together. And I'll definitely, if you all never ever need me to come on the show or something, I'll definitely make myself available.
You
But
definitely
today,
invited, bro. I know Marlon's already spoke on it, so he's the head of that ship. I just mop the floors. So, but he's a dynamite guy. I'm blessed, truly. I'm not a religious person, but I believe in God, and I really am blessed to have met that young man. So, hit him up.
Yes. And I'm curious. So, how do you, Tracy, and Theus know each other before we go tonight?
Yeah, it's funny how the three of us came together. I don't even remember it too tight. It's been so long now. But it's like Marlon had radical truth to power. And Tracy was starting her stuff as well. I'm just some dude. And there was a social media, a Facebook group. So I guess the best way I can book into it, not to like plug other people's stuff, but Ben Dixon, right? So back then he was doing much of his own work. And that brought me into like the chat room where I think I bumped into Marlon. And then I can't remember their names anymore. It's Mondale and the other guy, but they did clickbaiting. And so we were introduced to them. And then they had a really strong Facebook place. So that's where I bumped into Tracy. And then Marlon started his show, and Tracy already had her thing going, and she would like come on his from time to time. And then they invited me in. And it's just been family ever since. Tracy's gone do her own thing now. But she's still there, but she's not on the show. But yeah, that's how it all came together for us, as far as I can remember.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes more sense. So it's still kind of through the social media sphere.
Oh yeah. We're completely in different places, like North Carolina, Indiana, and Georgia. So,
and that's the beautiful thing about this. And I definitely, if I didn't think that there was potential to at the very least educate people, I wouldn't be doing this. And just the people that reach out and say that you've affected my life this way, that way, what you're doing is just inspirational. That kind of stuff right there is just like, how does that not keep you going? Even in your low points. And this has had a lot of low points. And I don't know if I've told you this. I don't know if you know this personally, but I've shared, I think maybe on 1 or 2 episodes, the reason why I created this forum is because it's in memoriam. My best friend passed, and it's always been in fruition, but I wasn't able to actually do it until I finished my PhD program. And so once that finished, I knew that I would be able to contribute this to ACE in some kind of way. And that was the only reason why I really started this. Like it was strictly because we used to have great conversations. And I know he would have enjoyed these types of conversations that we're having. He probably would have been in your position or Marlon or Tracy's position. We definitely didn't agree on a lot of stuff, but he would have been so proud to see what it's become now, just with the types of dialogues and the discussions we have, the direct action, the political stuff that we talk about. But it would have been really something to see. And I think it's a great thing that we're doing this, and I've been able to keep it alive and in his memory, especially. So
that's awesome. That's awesome, bro.
Beautiful people. It's been really a great thing to see what it's grown into. And this episode 138 was all over the place, but that's how we want it here. That's the way we have it here.
You got a lot of stuff to sort through, bro.
We have a lot. I'm already thinking about the clips that I'm going to put on TikTok, and just for people to wonder how we've grown so quickly within the last few months. Honestly, clipping TikTok, I was reluctant to do it at first, but TikTok's algorithm is a little bit more favorable for independent outlets. And so clips get very viral on there. And, just linking this to the YouTube channel, and we've seen traction that way. And so that would be my advice to people. The SEO keyword searches are very important. I've had to go in and change all of my information in every episode, and I still have to do a lot of that. But that's been the reason why we've been able to get traction is the SEO keywords and the TikTok algorithm. You need everything you can when you're small, and so
yeah, man. Well, keep doing the good work because that's great. Because like I said, you know, I've been doing this long enough that you heard me say it a couple times on the show, right? Is what you might want, but then it's what you do to get there, right? And I found that I like to talk. Only reason I started doing recording and all the content you'll find on my website here is because it was good for me for mental health. All this stuff was already in here. I had to get it out. I was getting really down and frustrated. And then Marlon and everything came along, and it really kind of moved from there. But I really don't like recording because I don't like how I sound. To me, I'm boring, so I don't record. So I do most of my work in the streets.
You're not boring. I can tell you that right now. You're not boring at all.
No, you ain't seen me talking by myself.
But I get that. This show was always, from its inception, was always meant to be conversational. So it's hard to kind of talk to yourself. And it definitely adds a different layer when you have someone to talk to, no doubt about it. But something you said there, like even when I started this, it was a therapeutic angle to it because I was so depressed in the PhD program. Like I was super depressed. There were just periods where I didn't know if I was going to make it in life, if I was going to make it through the program. And my wife already knows this. And I was able to get on the other side of that. But it definitely helped with depression. So if people are listening to this, it's definitely a great way to explore yourself mental health wise. And we all need our outlets. And
absolutely.
And maybe this is the way to go as opposed to the mainstream media. I know people use their own different outlets and stuff, but we all watch mainstream media. If we didn't, we'd be lying to ourselves. I mean, we see that stuff all the time. But I just hope that these independent shows continue to grow. I think Tracy's show will continue to grow. It's just sometimes it takes longer than others. You know, sometimes we all start from different points.
Well, I've seen her from the beginning, and she's grown in a good, strong way, and it's organic. So that's really good for her. Same thing with Marlon's show. I'm too inconsistent to do it. Right, I'll drop a video once every blue moon. So you never know when to do it. I got like 2 different YouTube channels, and one of them got 1 video on it, and the other one got 80 videos on it. So yeah, it's just not my calling.
I hope you do know, man, because the complex mind. Because I be watching some of your stuff on there. I'm just like, he needs to keep doing this, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's and not to wax long because I know I got to move. I got to do the next show, but you know, just because I believe in being as transparent as I can be. You know, like you said, this was very therapeutic for me. I was sliding into a very dark place because it was like, why is the world like this? You know, we could do better. We could do better, right? And then you know, even though I'm more toned down now because of how I've kind of shifted some of my views, I'm still incredibly pro-Black. So it's still like, yo, forget everybody else. We need to learn how to center ourselves so that we can work on ourselves, right? And if you picked up on it as we were talking through all the different things, it still comes back to, you know, you got to look at yourself and you got to be willing to have the difficult conversations. Mm-hmm. You got to be willing to fight and argue and be messy so that you can come out with something that makes more sense. And our community is so fractured, mainly because we can't even decide on what a community is. It's a very long and cumbersome journey that brought us here. And it also depends on how you're entering the story, right? Are you entering the story as a member of the diaspora? Mm-hmm. Are you entering the story as a descendant of American chattel slavery? Are you entering the story as just a descendant of slavery? Mm-hmm. Are you entering the story as a descendant of colonization? You know, are you upper class Black, middle class, lower class Black? Like all of these things are in there. And then we're all running away from our identity. No, I'm not Black. I'm African American. No, I'm not African American. I'm American. No, I'm not this. I'm Afro Latino. No, bro. When I walked up on you, you were black, right? So, you know, so we spend so much time trying to sort through our identities. We can't get to some of the more intricate things. Religion, you know, I grew up more or less religious.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it. I'm saying this because if you listen to a lot of things I speak and you go through some of my content, you would think that I'm against it. No, I'm not. I'm not against religion. Well, correction. I'm not against the faith. I have very real problems with religion.
Mm-hmm.
But even in that, it's a tool. And I challenge you that if you are a member of the religious community, how are you using that tool? So stuff like that. But yeah, I really do appreciate you, bro. Like I said, I warned you up front. You let me start talking.
There's nothing wrong with that. No, because I'm going to tell you, Theus, I got to plug in a few subsequent conversations coming down the road. This show is very much a people's forum too, and I'm meeting a person for the first time, and his name is Anthony Dax Simpson. He's creating a forum, an organization called Voices of Poverty. This is the first time I've interacted with him face to face, like we are right now. And that conversation is going to happen this upcoming Wednesday. We have renowned economist Jack Rasmus. Dr. Jack Rasmus is coming on for I don't know how many times, but he's going to come in to discuss the economy, the state of the economy, the election. If you haven't checked out some of this content before, I recommend it. There's just so many people we've had onto the show. It's not even funny. Finkelstein has been on 3 different times. Norman Finkelstein. Cornel West has been on twice. Dr. Stein has been on. We have my dad and my cousin, my first cousin, are coming on to the show next weekend. My dad made a lot of headwinds too on his first appearance, which was the 100th episode to commemorate the 100th episode of Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum. And so he's coming back on with our first cousin. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of debate back and forth like we had today. And Margaret Kimberly from Black Agenda Report is also coming on this upcoming week. We have a lot of people just coming on down the road. And so stay tuned, beautiful people. We have something for everybody. My Spanish lessons, I'm going to have my second set of lessons coming out next week, free of charge. Everything is free on this show. There's no paywall. So what everyone sees is what you get. And that's the way we have it here at Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum, basically a public people's forum. And if you don't have anything else to add, Theus, I'm going to close it out here and say that it's been a wonderful conversation, and we can't wait to have you back onto the show.
I appreciate it.
Whether it's me and you together, whether it's me, you, Marlon, Tracy, or whoever it is, I can't wait to have this conversation again.
Yeah, man, it's been beautiful. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And Our United Core people, check it out. And I'm going to link all of the information in the episode description. Make sure you check that information below the episode with Marlon's channel, Tracy's channel. I'm going to plug in your channel too, even though you're not on that as consistently. I'm still going to plug it in there, and Our United Core site as well, complexsimplemind.com. All that stuff I'm going to put in the episode description. Enjoy your night, beautiful people. We'll talk soon. Cheers, everybody.